The sky over downtown Chicago split open like it was made of paper. Mark Grayson felt it before he saw it. It was not a sound. It was a pressure in the air, a wrongness that made the hair on his arms rise. He looked up. High above the glass towers, the clouds bent around a jagged crack. Light spilled out of it, bright and white. But not like the sun. It was colder. The crack widened in a quick, violent tear. Something fell out. At first it was only shapes, dark against the light. Then details snapped into place. A man in a blue suit with a red cape dropped like a missile, but he did not tumble. He controlled the fall. Next to him was a man in gray and black, landing like a shadow. A woman in red and gold came down with a steady, fearless posture, like she expected the world to move out of her way. And then there was a blur, a human-shaped blur that hit the air, bounced, and caught itself like gravity was just a suggestion. Mark hovered in the air, frozen for half a second, because his brain had nothing to attach these people to. They were not in any file he had ever heard Cecil mention. They were not in any superhero magazine. They were not on any team Mark knew. Below them, the crack in the sky kept widening. Wind slammed into the street. Glass trembled. A billboard tore loose. People screamed. Mark shot down. He caught the billboard with both hands, his boot scraping across the side of a building as he pulled it away from the street. He expected to feel the metal bend under his grip. It did. But at the same time, the blue-suited man was there. The caped man caught the other end with one hand. One hand. He didn't even look strained. He looked focused, calm, like this was not new to him. Together, they swung the billboard up and laid it across the roof of a low building, like placing a giant sheet of metal on a table. Mark stared at him. The man's eyes flicked to Mark. Friendly, curious. No fear, no anger. "Good catch," the man said, like they were both just doing a job. Mark opened his mouth to speak. A bus on the street below lost control as the wind hit it. Tires lifted. The whole thing tipped toward a crowd. Mark started to move. The blur was already there. A red streak shot across the street. In the time it took Mark to blink, the bus was upright again. The crowd was gone. Not hurt. Just moved. Every person placed safely on the sidewalk, like pieces on a board. The blur stopped for a fraction of a second. A man in red and gold, breathing fast, grinning like he couldn't help it. "Okay," the fast man said to nobody in particular. "That was almost bad. Almost." Then he was gone again. A green light flashed above the street. A glowing shape formed, wide and solid, like a giant flat wall. It caught a falling piece of glass and broken sign parts. They bounced off and dropped harmlessly into a contained pile. Mark looked up and saw a man in a green suit with a glowing ring on his hand. He was making the light shapes like he was drawing with it. Mark had seen tech. He had seen magic-looking powers. But this was different. Clean. Precise. Like the light was obeying thought. The woman in red and gold landed hard on the street, cracking the pavement a little. She didn't apologize to the pavement. She just turned, scanning for danger with calm, warrior eyes. The gray-black man didn't even land on the street. He landed on a wall, then stepped down like gravity was a choice he could negotiate. Mark's heart thumped. They were too coordinated, too practiced, like a real military unit, but with capes. Mark's calm crackled in his ear. Cecil's voice came through, steady as always. "Invincible," Cecil said. "Do not engage unless necessary. Observe. We are moving assets." Mark didn't answer right away. He was watching the blue-suited man. The caped man lifted his head again, looking toward the sky crack. His eyes narrowed. Not scared. Thinking. He flew upward a little, slow and careful, like he didn't want to cause a shockwave. Then the crack spit out something else. Not people. Metal. A piece of a structure fell. A chunk of machinery the size of a small house. It spun end over end, falling straight toward the street. Mark pushed upward to catch it. The caped man moved first. He didn't rock it. He didn't rush. He simply appeared under it, arms out, and stopped it in the air. Stopped it. Like the machinery weighed nothing. Mark felt his stomach drop. This was not normal strength. This was the kind of power that made you rethink what strong even meant. The caped man looked down at the street, made a quick choice, then flew sideways and lowered the whole piece of machinery onto an empty rooftop without crushing it. He placed it gently, like it was fragile. Mark floated nearby, watching the control, the care. The caped man turned back to Mark. "I don't know where we are," he said. His voice stayed calm. "But people are getting hurt. Can you help us keep them safe?" Mark swallowed. "Yeah," Mark said. "Yeah, I can do that." A pressure hit the air behind them. Another presence. Heavy. Mark already knew that feeling. Omni-Man arrived without any dramatic entrance. He just appeared in the sky above the street, arms crossed, cape barely moving in the wind. His face looked relaxed, like he was watching a parade. But his eyes were sharp. He looked at the newcomers, one by one, measuring. Then his gaze settled on the blue-suited man. The caped man looked back. 2 red capes. 2 faces built for trust. 2 sets of eyes that carried something older behind them. Mark felt it like a storm building between them. Omni-Man drifted down to their level. "Mark," Omni-Man said, smooth. "You didn't tell me we were having guests." Mark's mouth went dry. "I didn't invite them." Omni-Man smiled slightly, like the idea amused him. He looked at the caped man. "And you are?" The caped man didn't flinch. "We're here by accident. We're trying to help." Omni-Man's smile stayed. "Helping?" Omni-Man repeated, like he was tasting the word. The caped man held his gaze. "Yes." Below them, sirens wailed. People ran. Cameras pointed up. Mark hovered between them, feeling like a kid caught between 2 adults who didn't like each other. The gray-black man on the wall glanced up at Omni-Man, then at the caped man, and Mark could almost feel his suspicion like a cold light. The fast man zipped up to Mark's side for half a second. "Buddy," the fast man whispered, too quick for anyone else to hear. "Is that guy always looking at people like he's deciding how to break them?" Mark blinked. "Kind of." The fast man nodded. "Cool. Not cool. But good to know." Then he vanished again. Omni-Man's eyes stayed on the caped man. "Accidents don't usually drop entire teams into a city," Omni-Man said. "That crack in the sky. You came through it." "We did," the caped man said. "We didn't make it." Omni-Man's gaze flicked to the torn sky, then back. "Then someone did," Omni-Man said quietly. "And if you're here, that means something changed." He leaned forward slightly, like the air itself belonged to him. Mark felt his stomach twist. The caped man didn't move back. He simply held his place in the air, calm and steady. "People first," the caped man said. "Questions after." Omni-Man's smile faded by a fraction. Mark watched both of them, and a strange thought hit him, sharp and unwanted. For the first time in a long time, Omni-Man was not the strongest thing in the sky. And for the first time in Mark's life, he didn't know if that was good or terrifying. Cecil Stedman watched the live feeds on 12 screens at once. Chicago was chaos, not the worst he'd seen, but the unknown factor made it feel worse. On one screen, the blue-suited man lifted a chunk of metal like it was a pillow. On another, the green-suited man made a glowing barrier as clean as a textbook diagram. On a third, the red blur moved so fast the camera couldn't follow him. Cecil didn't blink much. He blinked now. Donald stood beside him, arms folded. "We have no IDs, no records, no prior sightings." Cecil nodded, which means either we failed at our job, or they aren't from here. Donald looked at the sky tear on the screen. That answers that. Cecil pressed a button and spoke into the comm network. Units, do not fire unless fired upon. Keep distance. Maintain perimeter. On another screen, Omni-Man hovered face to face with the blue-suited man. Cecil's jaw tightened. Not from fear. From math. 2 god-tier unknowns plus Omni-Man in the same frame was not a problem. It was a new category of problem. "Get me a clean audio feed," Cecil said. A tech nodded and tapped keys. The sound came in. Wind, sirens, distant shouting, and the calm voice of the blue-suited man. "People first," the man said. Cecil listened. No ego, no threats. That meant either he was honest, or he was very smart. Cecil looked at the gray-black man on the wall. The camera zoomed. The man's head moved in small angles, scanning edges, angles, exits, rooftops. Cecil almost smiled. "That one," Cecil said. "That one is dangerous in a different way." Donald glanced. "The one with the ears?" "Yes," Cecil said. "He's already planning for us." Donald didn't laugh. "What do you want to do?" Cecil tapped the desk once. "We do what we always do. We make the first move, but we make it polite." He pressed another button. "Invincible, Omni-Man. This is Cecil. Bring them in." There was a pause. Mark's voice came back, uncertain. "Bring them where?" "To a place with fewer civilians," Cecil said. "A place where we can talk without 1,000 cameras." Omni-Man's voice came through next, smooth and confident. "I think we can handle a conversation, Cecil." Cecil didn't like the tone, but he kept his voice even. "Good. Then do it." He cut the comm and leaned back. "Do we have containment options?" Donald asked. Cecil stared at the screen with the blue-suited man. "We have options," Cecil said. "They just aren't good options." Superman didn't like the air here. Not the air itself, the feeling in it. This world city looked familiar in shape. Tall buildings, traffic, people staring up. But the fear was sharper. The uniforms below looked more like soldiers than rescue workers. The weapons were more visible. The eyes behind the weapons were more ready. The man called Cecil didn't come in person. He sent a voice that acted like it owned the situation. Superman kept his face calm. He kept his hands open. He kept his posture non-threatening. He could hear the gray-black man's thoughts behind the mask. Not literal thoughts, but the rhythm of attention. The way Bruce always tracked everything. Bruce had already decided. This world was a trap, until proven otherwise. Superman understood. He just wished Bruce didn't look like he was already writing plans in his head. Wonder Woman hovered nearby, her expression steady. She wasn't relaxed. She was ready. The kind of ready that came from years of war. Green Lantern floated at Superman's left, ring glowing faintly. He looked irritated. Flash was everywhere and nowhere at once, moving civilians away from debris, checking for injuries, then back again with a nervous grin like he couldn't stop his own energy. Martian Manhunter hovered behind them, quiet as space. Aquaman landed on a rooftop and looked down at the street with open displeasure. "Armed men around civilians," he muttered. "This place is not healthy." Superman lowered his voice. "We don't know their reasons yet." Batman's voice came through the comm in Superman's ear. "We know enough. They're controlling the scene. They're controlling information. They're controlling people." Superman didn't argue. He didn't have to. He just said, "We will still treat them fairly." Batman didn't answer. Below them, the young hero, Invincible, hovered in the air, looking between Superman and the mustached man in the red cape. The mustached man looked like a hero. He sounded like one too, but his eyes didn't match. Superman's instincts didn't scream. They didn't relax either. The mustached man spoke again. "Cecil wants you to come with us. To talk." Superman nodded. "We will." The mustached man smiled. "Good." Then, very casually, he moved closer, like he was choosing to be in control of the space. Superman held his ground. Before we go, Superman said, tell me your name. The mustached man's smile stayed. Omni-Man. Superman nodded once, storing it away. I'm Superman. The young hero's eyes widened. Wait, like, that's your real name? Superman glanced down at him. It's what people call me. Okay, the young hero said, breathless. I'm Invincible. I'm Mark. Superman offered a small smile. Nice to meet you, Mark. Batman landed beside Superman, cloak settling. He looked at Omni-Man, then at Mark. Batman didn't introduce himself. He never did first. Omni-Man's eyes flicked to Batman and paused there, just a little longer than polite. You, Omni-Man said. Batman's voice was flat. Me. The air tightened. Superman stepped half a foot forward, not to threaten, but to set a tone. We'll talk, Superman said. Now. Omni-Man's smile returned. Of course. They followed Mark and Omni-Man through the air, away from the cameras, away from the crowds. GDA jets kept distance, tracking them like careful wolves. As they flew, Flash zipped in close to Superman for a second. Do you think they have, like, a sign-in sheet? Flash whispered. Superman blinked. A what? Flash grinned. A sign-in sheet. Visitor badges. Parking validation. I'm just saying, I've been to buildings like this. Batman, without looking, said, if they ask us to fill out forms, don't. Flash's grin faltered. I can fill out forms very fast. Batman said, that makes it worse. Flash opened his mouth, then closed it. Fair. Wonder Woman's lips twitched once, almost a smile. The GDA facility was not a hall of justice. It was built to be unseen. They entered through a wide metal opening in the earth that swallowed them with harsh lights and hard angles. The walls were thick. The cameras were everywhere. The air smelled like cold machines and disinfectant. Superman's senses mapped the place in seconds. Layers of steel, reinforced concrete, hidden rooms, more armed personnel than a small war. He didn't comment. Not yet. Cecil finally appeared. Not in person, but on a screen. A tall man in a suit, calm face, eyes that looked like they didn't waste time on hope, unless it was useful. Welcome, Cecil said. Batman's eyes narrowed. Not really. Cecil smiled faintly. I admire honesty. Superman stepped forward. We didn't choose to arrive here, but we're here. We help people. That's what we do. Cecil nodded as if Superman was reading from a report Cecil already had. That's good, because this world has problems. Green Lantern crossed his arms. Every world has problems. Sure, Cecil said, but ours has bigger ones than most. Mark hovered a little behind Cecil's screen, awkward like a teenager in a meeting with adults. He kept glancing at Superman like Superman was a lighthouse. Omni-Man leaned against a wall like he owned the facility too. Cecil looked directly at Superman. We will need to know what you are. Superman didn't like the phrasing, but he kept his voice calm. I'm a person. Cecil's eyes didn't change. We'll start with basics. Names, origins, capabilities. Batman stepped forward. No. Silence hit the room. Mark's eyes widened. Omni-Man's smile returned, small and interested. Cecil didn't react like a man offended. He reacted like a man adjusting a plan. No? Batman's voice stayed steady. We don't share our full capabilities with people we just met in a bunker. Cecil nodded once. Reasonable. Green Lantern's eyebrows rose. Wait, that worked? Batman didn't look at him. It didn't. He just changed tactics. Cecil's smile deepened by a millimeter. Also reasonable. Superman spoke again. We can share enough to establish trust, not enough to be controlled. Cecil looked at him. Controlled. Superman held the gaze. Yes. Cecil turned his head slightly, like he was addressing the whole room now. Let me be clear. I don't want to control you because I like control. I want to control you because I have a planet to keep alive. Wonder Woman's voice was calm but firm. Control can protect. It can also become a cage. Cecil's eyes met hers. True. Martian Manhunter finally spoke, voice gentle. Your fear is loud in this place. The room's guards stiffened. Some raised weapons slightly. Not firing. Just reflex. Cecil lifted a hand. Stand down. The guards obeyed. Superman noticed that. Cecil didn't beg. He didn't ask. He commanded. Batman noticed it too. Cecil's voice stayed even. We have protocols for unknown forces. That's not personal. That's survival. Aquaman stepped forward, unimpressed. You aim guns at people who save your civilians. Cecil didn't blink. Sometimes, the people who save you today kill you tomorrow. Mark shifted uncomfortably, like Cecil had said something he wanted to forget. Superman looked at Mark. Mark, can we speak with you privately? Omni-Man's eyes sharpened. Why? Superman looked at Omni-Man. Because he's the one who actually met us first. And because he's young, and I can tell he's trying to do the right thing. Omni-Man's jaw tightened slightly. He's my son. Superman nodded. Then you should want him to have clear information. Omni-Man stared for a long second. Then he smiled again. Too smooth. Fine. Talk. Cecil's screen turned slightly. We'll provide a room. Batman leaned toward Superman, voice low. Don't go alone. Superman answered softly. I won't. Martian Manhunter moved with them, quiet and steady. Flash zipped in, then stopped, forcing himself to walk like a normal person. Do they have snacks? Flash whispered to a passing agent, then quickly added, I mean, water. Or forms. I can sign forms. The agent stared at him like he was an alien. Cecil's voice came from a speaker overhead. You will receive temporary clearance badges. Flash's face lit up. Called it. A tray rolled in with small plastic cards. Badges. Each one had a blank photo slot. A guard offered one to Superman. Superman took it carefully, like it might be a peace offering. The guard offered one to Wonder Woman, Lantern, John, Aquaman, Flash. Then the guard offered one to Batman. Batman didn't take it. The guard's hand hovered there, confused. Batman said, No. Flash leaned close, whispering, Just take it. It's like a souvenir. Batman said, No. Cecil's voice came again. Mr. Wayne? Batman's head snapped slightly toward the nearest speaker, the smallest clue that Cecil knew. Batman's voice turned colder. Don't. Silence again. Cecil didn't push. He just said, Fine, no badge. Batman stared at the speaker like he could see Cecil through it. Superman's stomach sank. This was going to be difficult. The private room was plain. Table, chairs, camera in the corner, too obvious. Batman looked at the camera. Turn it off. A speaker clicked. Cecil's voice came in. No. Batman said, Then we don't talk. Cecil sighed. I'll mute audio. Video stays. Batman stared, then nodded once. A small concession. Superman sat across from Mark. Mark sat down slowly like his knees had forgotten chairs existed. Superman kept his tone gentle. Mark, you look like someone who wants to do good. Mark laughed once, nervous. Yeah, I do. Superman nodded. That's enough to start. Mark glanced at Omni-Man through the glass window. Omni-Man stood outside, arms crossed, watching like a guard. Mark swallowed. So, you're called Superman? Superman smiled lightly. Yes. And him? Mark nodded at Batman, who stood instead of sitting, silent and still. Batman's voice was flat. Batman. Mark blinked. That's on purpose. Flash leaned into the room, already wearing the badge upside down. We're not big on subtle branding. Batman's eyes flicked to Flash's badge. Flash fixed it in a blur. Better. Superman stayed focused. Mark, what is this world like? Mark hesitated. He didn't know how to explain it without sounding crazy. It's hard, Mark said. Heroes die sometimes. People get hurt. And there are things out there that are way stronger than most of us. Superman nodded. And the man outside, Omni-Man, he's one of the strongest. Mark's face tightened. Yeah. Batman spoke without emotion. Do you trust him? Mark opened his mouth, then closed it. That answer was stuck somewhere deep. I do, Mark said, but it sounded like he was trying to convince himself. Superman didn't press. He just said, okay. Martian Manhunter watched Mark carefully. You carry fear like a weight. Mark's voice rose. I'm not scared. Batman said, you are. Mark looked at Batman, angry, then confused, then tired. Why are you talking like you know me? Batman's voice didn't change. Because you hesitate when his name is said. That's not nothing. Mark's hands clenched. He's my dad. Superman's eyes softened. I understand. Mark looked up fast. You do? Superman nodded. Fathers can be complicated. Batman didn't soften. Complicated is fine. Dangerous is not. Mark's chest tightened. Superman held up a hand slightly, calming. Mark, we aren't here to tear your world apart. We're here because something brought us here. We want to stop it from hurting anyone else. Mark swallowed. Cecil thinks you might be a threat. Batman said. Cecil thinks everything is a threat. A speaker crackled. Cecil's voice dry. That's because everything is. Flash leaned back in his chair, feet on the floor like a kid trying to behave. He's kind of fun in a terrifying way. Wonder Woman stepped in, eyes on Mark. Mark, we will not lie to you. We will not harm your people. But we also will not accept chains. Mark looked from face to face. They were different kinds of serious, different kinds of strong. He realized something then. This team was not like any team he knew. They argued, but they still moved like one unit. They had a rhythm. They were built on trust. Cecil didn't trust. Omni-Man didn't trust. Robot didn't trust. Not really. Mark thought about that, and it made his stomach ache. Superman leaned forward. Tell us what the biggest danger is. Mark hesitated again, then spoke the word he hated. Viltrumites, Mark said. Batman's eyes narrowed. Explain. Mark took a breath. They're my dad's people. They're strong. They conquer worlds. Superman's face stayed calm, but something in his eyes sharpened. Conquer. Mark nodded. Yeah. Batman looked toward the camera corner. Cecil. The speaker crackled. Cecil's voice was quieter now. I'm listening. Batman said, this is not just local crime. This is an empire problem. Cecil said, I'm aware. Batman's voice turned sharper. How aware? Cecil didn't answer right away. Mark's throat tightened. Superman spoke, gentle but firm. Cecil, we need to know what we're dealing with. Not just for us. For your world. Cecil's voice returned. Here's what I can offer. Temporary cooperation, temporary access, and clear boundaries. Green Lantern snorted. You mean rules? Cecil said. Yes, rules. Superman said. Then, here are ours. We won't kill unless there is no other choice. We protect civilians first. We don't become weapons for a government. Cecil's voice was flat. We don't have the luxury of ideals. Wonder Woman's eyes hardened. Then you borrow ours until you remember them. Silence stretched. Then Cecil said, Fine. Batman's head tilted slightly, like he didn't believe it. Cecil continued, You can operate, but you will be tracked. You will be monitored. You will be on call. Batman said, No. Cecil sighed. Yes. Batman said, Try. Flash whispered, This is going great. Superman ignored the tension and focused on the bigger thing. Mark, Superman said, If these Viltrumites notice us... Mark's eyes widened. They will. Martian Manhunter's voice was low. Then the tear that brought you here may have also served as a beacon. Batman's eyes turned cold. So we have a clock. Cecil's voice came soft. We always do. Act I ended there, not with trust, but with a working shape of peace. A deal made with clenched teeth. And outside the facility, high above the planet, the sky crack that had opened was gone. But something had already seen it. Something that did not ask for permission. Angstrom Levy stood in a place that wasn't a place. It was a room stitched from broken doors. Some doors opened to deserts, some opened to oceans, some opened to cities that looked like Mark's city, but wrong in small ways. A different billboard, a different skyline, a different kind of fear. Angstrom held his head with one hand. The headache was always there now, like a reminder that he had made himself into a puzzle with too many pieces. He breathed slowly. Then he smiled. He had felt it. A spike in reality. A new tear. Not his tear. Something else. And through it, power had dropped into Mark's world. New power. Clean power. Organized power. A team. Angstrom walked toward a door that showed Chicago streets and GDA troops. He watched the caped man lift that chunk of machinery with one hand. Angstrom's smile widened. You, he whispered, you are going to make this so much easier. He pressed his palm to the doorframe. His mind pulled on the space between worlds like grabbing a thread. A new doorway formed behind him. This one didn't open to another world. It opened inside Mark's world, right where it would hurt, right where it would make everyone panic. Angstrom stepped through. The first portal opened above a hospital. It was a clean circle in the air, a simple hole, like someone had cut reality with a sharp tool. Mark was on patrol with Superman when the alarm hit the GDA comms. Mark's stomach dropped as soon as he heard Cecil's voice. Multiple anomalies, Cecil said. Portals. Chicago. Again. Again. Mark shot upward. Superman moved with him, keeping pace without effort. They reached the hospital in seconds. A portal hung over the roof like a black coin. Something fell out. Not a person this time. A machine. A drone. Heavy armor and spinning blades. It slammed onto the roof and tore a chunk out of the concrete. Doctors screamed inside. Mark dove, fists clenched. Superman put a hand out, stopping Mark mid-flight. Civilians first, Superman said. Mark's jaw tightened. I know. They split without arguing. Superman flew through the hospital roof, not breaking it, slipping through a stairwell opening where construction had left a gap. He moved down hallways like a wind that didn't touch anything. Mark followed the sound of people screaming. On the roof, the drone started firing downward. Bullets tore into walls. Not enough to collapse the building yet, but enough to kill. Mark grabbed the drone and threw it upward, away from the hospital. It hit the air and tried to correct itself. A green wall snapped into place and stopped it. Green Lantern hovered nearby, ring glowing, jaw tight. I hate portals, he said. Another portal opened across the street. Then another, like someone was tapping holes into the world. Flash arrived as a red streak, and for a moment Mark only saw people. People sliding out of danger. People lifted and set down. People saved. Flash stopped beside Mark for half a second, eyes wide. Okay, Flash said. This is too many doors. Who is the door guy? Mark didn't answer. He didn't know. But Batman did. Batman's voice hit their comms, sharp. This is Levy. Cecil's voice came right after. How do you know? Batman didn't sound pleased to be right. Because this is pattern behavior. This is psychological warfare. He's not just attacking. He's staging. Mark's heart pounded. Levy is back? Cecil's voice was tight. Yes, and this time he's smarter. As if to prove it, a portal opened low to the street, right in front of a school bus. A second portal opened high above it. A massive chunk of rubble fell through the high portal, aimed to land on the bus. Mark shot toward it. Flash was already there, moving kids out through the bus windows in a blur. Superman flew upward and caught the falling rubble with one hand. He didn't just stop it. He absorbed the force like he was made of steel and patience. Wonder Woman appeared on the street, blocking debris with her bracelets. Guiding people behind her like a shield was also a command. Martian Manhunter floated above, eyes closed, spreading calm across minds like a blanket. Mark looked around and realized something. The Justice League did not fight like heroes in his world. They fought like firefighters. They treated the battle like a disaster first and a fight second. It was beautiful, and it was going to get them killed if the enemy wanted blood. Another portal opened. This one was different. It opened in the sky, far above the rooftops. A silhouette stepped through. Not a drone, not rubble. A person, a tall man in strange gear, floating, smiling like he was on a stage. Angstrom Levy looked down at the city like a man looking at an ant farm. "Hello," Angstrom called out. His voice carried somehow, without a speaker. Mark's stomach twisted. Angstrom spread his arms wide. "I missed you, Mark." Mark rose into the air, fists clenched. "What are you doing?" Angstrom's eyes flicked to Superman, then to Wonder Woman, then to Lantern, then to Flash. He looked delighted. "Oh," Angstrom said, "so it's true. You found new friends." Superman hovered forward, calm face, eyes steady. "Stop this. People will die." Angstrom tilted his head. "And that matters to you." Superman didn't blink. "Yes." Angstrom laughed softly. "That is going to be your weakness here." Batman's voice cut it in through comms. "He's baiting." Cecil's voice came right after. "Contain him." Green Lantern's construct hands reached upward like glowing claws. Angstrom opened a portal beside him and slid sideways through it like stepping around a corner. He reappeared behind Lantern and kicked him hard in the back. Lantern flew forward, shocked, barely catching himself. The kick wasn't super strong, but it was timed perfectly. Angstrom wasn't trying to win with strength. He was trying to make them look sloppy. Flash zipped toward Angstrom. Angstrom opened a portal in front of Flash and another behind him. Flash hit the first portal and came out the second, launching himself into open air with nothing to push against. Flash adjusted in midair, spinning fast, correcting himself. He still didn't hit Angstrom. Angstrom clapped once, slow, sarcastic, fast, but not used to doors. Superman moved. Not a blur like Flash, not a streak. A controlled, instant acceleration that turned the air into a low thunder. He reached Angstrom. Angstrom opened a portal the size of a coin between Superman's hand and his own chest. Superman's hand stopped an inch short because Superman saw it and chose not to risk it. Angstrom smiled. "You hesitate." Superman's eyes narrowed. "I choose." Angstrom's grin faltered, just a little. Then Angstrom snapped his fingers. A portal opened behind Superman. A second portal opened above a crowded street. A third portal opened beneath a parked fuel truck. Mark's eyes widened. "No!" Superman vanished downward, moving faster than Mark could track. He didn't fly through the portal, he flew around it. He reached the fuel truck, lifted it straight up, and carried it away in the space of a breath. Wonder Woman threw her lasso upward, snagging falling debris and yanking it aside with raw strength. Martian Manhunter phased through a collapsing wall and pulled two trapped people out without breaking them. Green Lantern formed a dome around a crowd, breathing hard, willpower straining as debris hit the glowing shell. Mark went for Angstrom again, angry now. Angstrom's eyes gleamed. "That's it. That's the part I like." Angstrom opened a portal and dropped Mark into the air above the lake. Mark caught himself, shot back, and punched through the edge of the portal as it tried to close. His fist hit empty air. Angstrom was already gone. "Stop running!" Mark shouted. Angstrom's voice came from above, calm and mocking. Stop chasing. Start choosing. Mark looked up and saw Angstrom floating again, but farther away, positioned like a director. Then the air shifted. A new presence arrived. Omni-Man. He hovered beside Superman, arms crossed, eyes sharp. He looked at Angstrom. Then he looked at Superman. And in that look, Mark saw something dangerous. Omni-Man wasn't focused on the portals. He was focused on the newcomer who didn't flinch. Angstrom saw it too. Angstrom smiled wider than before. "Oh," Angstrom whispered. "This is perfect." Angstrom opened 2 portals, not to drop debris this time, but to cut lines through the air. The portals sliced the space between Omni-Man and Superman, making a trap of angles and timing. Omni-Man didn't dodge. He went straight through, because he didn't respect the threat. He came out the other side and lunged at Angstrom. Angstrom slipped away through another portal laughing. Omni-Man stopped in midair, annoyed. Superman hovered near him, eyes scanning the streets below, making sure civilians were still safe. Omni-Man's gaze flicked to Superman again. "You're strong," Omni-Man said, low. Superman didn't take the bait. "Focus on the threat." Omni-Man's mouth tightened. "I am." Then Omni-Man moved, not at Angstrom, at Superman. Mark's heart slammed into his ribs. "Dad!" Omni-Man drove a fist toward Superman's chest, hard enough that the air cracked. Superman raised one arm and caught it. The impact still made a shockwave. Windows rattled. Loose debris jumped. Green Lantern grunted and threw up extra constructs to keep falling glass from the street. Flash shouted, "Hey, not the time for the macho stuff." Omni-Man's eyes narrowed. "This is exactly the time." Superman's grip held steady. His expression stayed calm, but his eyes turned serious. "Not here," Superman said. "Not over people." Omni-Man pushed. Superman didn't move back. He didn't push harder. He just held. It was like watching 2 mountains decide which one was allowed to exist in the same space. Mark hovered between them, shaking. He had seen his dad fight. He had seen his dad win. He had never seen anyone stop him like this. Wonder Woman's eyes locked on Omni-Man, ready to move if he crossed a line. Batman's voice hit the comms, sharp and cold. "This is it. This is the crack." Cecil's voice came in, tense. "Omni-Man, stand down." Omni-Man didn't even glance at the hidden speaker. "No." Superman spoke softly, only for Omni-Man. "There are children under us." Omni-Man's eyes flicked down for a fraction of a second. Superman used that moment. He didn't punch. He shifted the angle, stepped through the air with speed and skill, and guided Omni-Man's momentum upward and away from the city. It was not a throw meant to hurt. It was a move meant to relocate. Omni-Man's body shot into open sky, away from buildings. Superman followed, fast, but careful, pulling the conflict away like moving fire away from a fuel line. Mark watched them go, chest tight, breath shallow. Angstrom Levy hovered higher, watching like a man watching a movie he paid for. He looked pleased. "Good," Angstrom said quietly. "Show them. Show everyone." Mark shot upward toward Angstrom, rage hot now. "You did this!" Angstrom shrugged. "I revealed it." Mark tried to hit him. Angstrom opened a portal under Mark's feet. Mark fell through and came out sideways, slamming into the side of a building. He caught himself before he hit hard, but the moment cost him. Angstrom was already moving, already shaping the battlefield. A portal opened near the GDA perimeter, dumping a swarm of drones into the street. A second portal opened near a power station. A third opened above a crowded train line. Angstrom wasn't trying to win a fight. He was trying to make them fail in public. Flash darted to the train line, hands moving so fast they looked like a blur of red light. He lifted people off the platform and set them back far from the edge. Green Lantern flew to the power station, wrapping it in green armor so it wouldn't explode. Wonder Woman crashed into the drone swarm, smashing machines with clean, brutal efficiency. Martian Manhunter reached into the minds of panicked civilians, guiding them towards safe exits, calming them enough to move. Batman appeared on a rooftop, cape snapping in the wind. He threw a small device into the air. It exploded into a tight field of crackling energy around one portal. The portal wavered. Cecil's voice cut in. "What did you do?" Batman's voice stayed flat. "It's a stabilizer disruptor. It won't close a portal, but it can make the edges unstable." Cecil said, "You built that here?" Batman said, "I built it from things you left lying around." Cecil went quiet for a beat. Then, dryly, "Of course you did." Mark's eyes tracked upward again. Superman and Omni-Man were far above now, over the lake. Superman spoke again, voice calm but firm, even in mid-air. "You want to test me," Superman said. "Fine, but not at the cost of lives." Omni-Man's eyes narrowed. "You're careful." Superman's eyes didn't waver. "I'm responsible." Omni-Man smiled, but it wasn't warm. "Responsibility makes you predictable," Superman said. "No, it makes me trustworthy." Omni-Man surged forward again. This time Superman met him in open air, away from the city, away from people. Their fists collided once. The sound rolled across the lake like distant thunder. Mark watched from far below, and even from this distance, it felt huge. But Superman still didn't fight like he wanted to hurt. He fought like he wanted to stop. He blocked, redirected, moved Omni-Man's line away from the city each time Omni-Man tried to angle back. It made Omni-Man angrier. And it made Angstrom happier. Angstrom didn't stay long. He didn't need to. He opened a final portal near Batman's rooftop, just close enough to be rude. Batman turned. Angstrom leaned out of the portal, smiling. "Nice toys," Angstrom said. "Tell your friend in blue that I said hello." Batman's eyes were ice. "You're making a mistake." Angstrom laughed. "I'm making a point." Batman moved. Angstrom vanished through the portal before Batman could reach him. The portal snapped shut. The city fell into a tense, shaking quiet, broken only by sirens and the crackle of damaged power lines. The drones were down. The worst debris had been stopped. People were alive. But the damage to something else was already done. Cameras had caught the sky tear. They had caught the strangers. They had caught the power. And they had caught Omni-Man swinging at Superman. Mark landed on a rooftop, breathing hard, staring at the distant figures in the sky. He felt small in a way he hated. Cecil's voice came through the comms, low and controlled. "Everyone regroup, now." Batman's voice answered, colder than before. "We are no longer dealing with a mystery. We are dealing with a trigger." Green Lantern looked up at the skyline, jaw tight. And the whole world just saw it. Flash stood nearby, hands on his hips, badge still on his chest like a joke that wouldn't stop. "So," he said softly, "who's going to tell me where to file the sky ripped open and my coworker got punched by a mustached guy report?" No one laughed. Mark's eyes stayed on the sky. The fight above the lake was still happening. Controlled, contained. But Mark knew, deep down, that this was only the first crack. And cracks did not stay small. They spread. The next morning, Chicago looked normal from far away. Cars moved, trains ran. The lake was calm again. But if you got close, you could see what normal was hiding. New boards covered broken windows. Fresh tape marked damaged streets. People stood in small groups, staring up at the sky like it might rip open again. Inside the GDA, Cecil Stedman watched the world react in real time. 12 screens showed 12 versions of the same story. A shaky phone video of a red blur moving people off a street. A green wall catching debris. A woman in armor landing so hard the road cracked. A man in blue holding a falling chunk of metal like it was a suitcase. And then, the clip that kept replaying on every channel. 2 men in capes, high above the lake. One mustached, one clean-shaven, one swinging like a hammer, one blocking like a wall that refused to break. Cecil tapped his fingers once on the desk, not nervous, thinking. Donald stood beside him, arms tight. "It's everywhere," Donald said. "Even the footage that was supposed to be blocked." Cecil's eyes stayed on the screen. "It always is." A tech slid a tablet across the desk. "Press wants names. The internet is inventing them." Cecil glanced down. The headlines were already messy. "New gods in Chicago. Alien team arrives. Who fought Omni-Man?" One site had slowed the video and zoomed in on the blue suit. They had typed a guess in bold letters. Superman. Cecil didn't like that the guess was correct. He leaned back. "Tell me who leaked the clean angle." The tech swallowed. "We don't know." Cecil stared for a long moment. Then he looked at another screen, paused on a single frame. Batman, on a rooftop, throwing a device toward a portal. The cape shape, the stance, the way he didn't run when things got big. Cecil's mouth moved like he almost smiled, but didn't. Donald followed his gaze. "You think it was him?" Cecil said, "I think he assumes information wants to be free. I think he also assumes I don't deserve to own it." Donald's jaw tightened. "So what now?" Cecil reached into a drawer and pulled out a stack of plastic cards. New badges, same shape, different color strip. Donald stared. "You're printing more?" Cecil said. "They keep coming back without them." Donald's face stayed flat. One of them refused the first one. Cecil nodded. "Yes, and I still made one for him." "That's not for him. That's for me." He slid the top badge out. The photo slot was blank, but the name line read, Batman. Under it, in smaller text, "Temporary access level, limited." Donald let out a slow breath. "He's going to love that." Cecil said, "He's going to hate it, which means it's probably correct." He tapped another screen, a live feed of a quiet corridor. The Justice League had been given a safe wing in the GDA. Safe for who was still an open question. Cecil watched them move through the hall like they were already mapping it. Not with fear, with habit. That was the part that bothered him. Power didn't scare Cecil. He had lived his whole life around power. Control was the difference between power that saved the world and power that ended it. And right now, he had visitors who did not want to be controlled. Cecil picked up his headset. "Donald," he said, "tell the staff. No jokes, no selfies, no welcome to our universe speeches." Donald nodded. "And if they ask for anything?" Cecil's eyes stayed on the lake fight clip. "Give them what they need to save lives. Don't give them what they need to own the building." Donald hesitated. "And Omni-Man?" Cecil's voice went quiet. "Omni-Man is the reason we can't afford mistakes." He paused, then added, almost like talking to himself, "And he's the reason this might end early." Donald frowned. "End early?" Cecil didn't answer. He just looked at the screen again, at the way Omni-Man's fist stopped in the blue-suited man's hand. For the first time in years, Cecil had seen Omni-Man fail to do what Omni-Man wanted. That was not just a fight. That was a crack in a story Cecil had been forced to live with. And cracks spread. Mark Grayson sat on the edge of his bed and stared at his hands. They looked the same. No bruises, no cuts. But they didn't feel the same. He kept seeing the sky tear in his head. He kept hearing the sound of Omni-Man's punch hitting Superman's block, rolling across the lake like thunder. Mark had fought strong people. He had been thrown through walls. He had been slammed into streets. But watching his dad get stopped like that did something to him. It made his stomach twist. It made him feel guilty for feeling relief. A soft knock hit his door. Mark flinched, then forced himself to speak. "Yeah?" Eve stepped in without waiting. She had a hoodie on, hair pulled back. She looked tired, like she had slept, but it didn't count. "You're awake," she said. Mark rubbed his face. "Barely." Eve leaned against the doorframe. Everyone's talking. Mark's throat tightened. About what? Eve tilted her phone toward him. A paused video. Omni-Man and Superman in the sky. Two bright dots fighting over the dark lake. The comments below it were worse. Some people were cheering. Some were terrified. Some were making jokes. One comment had 100 likes. Omni-Man finally met his match. Mark swallowed hard. Eve lowered the phone. Cecil's freaking out. Mark let out a dry laugh. Cecil's always freaking out. He just hides it. Eve walked in and sat on Mark's desk chair like it was her place too. "What happened up there?" she asked. Mark shook his head. "I don't know. My dad. He stopped. The words didn't want to come out. Eve watched him. He attacked the new guy. Mark stared at the floor. He tested him. Eve's eyes narrowed. "That's your word for it?" Mark's face heated. "I'm not defending him." Eve didn't push. She just nodded once, but her expression said she didn't fully believe Mark. Silence sat between them for a moment. Then Mark whispered. Superman didn't even look angry. Eve blinked. "The one in blue?" Mark nodded. He could have gone harder. Eve leaned forward, and he didn't. Mark's voice cracked a little. He kept moving the fight away from people, like that was the only thing that mattered. Eve sat back slowly. "That's not how it usually goes here." Mark laughed once, bitter. "I know." Eve's eyes softened. "Mark, listen to me." Mark looked up. Eve said, "If there's someone on Earth who can make your dad think twice, that changes everything." Mark's chest tightened. "Or it makes him worse." Eve didn't deny it. "Yeah, that too." Mark stared at his hands again. Eve stood, then paused at the door. "Oh," she said, "I ran into the fast one." Mark looked up. "The red blur?" Eve nodded. "He asked me where he was supposed to file a report about the sky tearing open." Mark blinked. "He asked you that?" Eve shrugged. He looked serious about it. Mark let out a small breath that almost counted as a laugh. Eve's mouth twitched. "He also signed a clipboard without reading it, 3 times. Mark's eyebrows lifted. "What did he sign?" Eve pointed down the hall. "Cecil's people were arguing about it. I think one of the forms was a parking waiver." Mark stared. Eve said, "So, yeah, new universe. Same nonsense." Then she left. Mark sat alone again, but Eve's words stayed in his head. Someone who could make Omni-Man think twice. Mark didn't know if that person was a gift or a bomb. Superman stood in a quiet GDA room and listened to the building, not with his ears alone, with everything. He could hear air vents hum. He could hear heartbeats in distant halls. He could hear guards shifting weight and trying to pretend they weren't nervous. He could also hear Mark's heartbeat when Mark stepped into the room. Mark stopped just inside the doorway, unsure how close to get. Superman turned slowly and gave him a small, friendly smile. "You came," Superman said. Mark shrugged. "Cecil told me to." Superman nodded, accepting it. "Thank you anyway." Mark stared at him like he was trying to figure out what kind of person Superman was. "So," Mark said, "are you, really called Superman?" Superman's smile stayed gentle. "It's what people call me." Mark scratched the back of his head. "Okay, that's kind of intense." Superman chuckled softly. "It's a lot." "I know." Mark hesitated. "My world doesn't have symbols like that." Superman tilted his head. "It has heroes." Mark looked away. "Sometimes." Superman took a step closer, careful not to crowd him. "I saw you yesterday," Superman said. "You ran into danger without thinking. That's real." Mark's throat tightened. "Yeah, well, if I don't, people die." Superman nodded. "That's true, but it matters how you carry it." Mark frowned. "What does that mean?" Superman looked out through a small window. The sky outside was bright, calm, like it had never broken. It means, Superman said, if you carry it alone, it crushes you. If you carry it with anger, it makes you careless. If you carry it with fear, it makes you freeze. Mark's jaw tightened. So what are you supposed to carry it with? Superman looked back at him. With purpose, and with people you trust. Mark flinched slightly, like the word trust poked something sore. Superman noticed, but didn't say it out loud. Mark swallowed. My dad says trust makes you weak. Superman's eyes stayed calm. Your father is wrong. Mark stared at him, surprised by how direct it was. Superman continued, voice still gentle. Trust doesn't make you weak. It makes you human, even if you're not human. Mark blinked. You're not human? Superman smiled. Not exactly. Mark's eyes widened. You're an alien. Superman nodded once. Yes. Mark's shoulders dropped a little, like that made things simpler. Okay, that makes sense. Superman let the small humor pass, then asked softly, Mark, are you safe? Mark stiffened. What? Superman held his gaze. You look like someone trying to smile through a storm. Mark's mouth opened, then closed. He didn't answer. Superman didn't push. He just said, if you ever need someone to talk to, you can. Mark's voice came out small. You don't even know me. Superman's eyes softened. I know enough. Mark looked down. A speaker in the ceiling clicked. Cecil's voice came through. This is touching, really, but we have bigger problems. Superman looked up at the speaker. We're aware. Cecil said, good, conference room. Now, all of you. The speaker clicked off. Mark exhaled. Yeah, that sounds like Cecil. Superman gave a tiny smile. I've met that type. Mark started toward the door, then paused. Hey, Mark said quietly, about my dad. Superman waited. Mark swallowed. He's complicated. Superman nodded, like he understood more than Mark knew. So are most people. Mark let out a breath and walked out. Superman followed, hearing the building again, hearing the fear, and hearing something else underneath it. A quiet excitement. People were scared, but they were also curious, because hope had arrived, and hope was always dangerous. The conference room was built to make people feel small. Long table, harsh lights, too many empty chairs, like it was ready for a lot of deaths. Cecil appeared on a screen again. Calm face, calm voice. The Justice League stood on one side of the room. Mark, Eve, and a few GTA-backed heroes stood on the other. Omni-Man didn't sit. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes bored. Batman didn't sit either. Flash started to sit, then noticed Batman standing and popped back up like sitting was suddenly illegal. Green Lantern glanced at Flash's badge. Is that the new one? Flash looked down. Yeah, it says temporary clearance. He flipped it. It also says, do not duplicate. He looked up, proud. So I made 5. Cecil's eyes narrowed. You did what? Flash grinned. Kidding. Batman's voice was flat. He's not kidding. Flash's grin faded a little. Okay. I made 2. Cecil stared at him like he was fighting the urge to rub his temples. Wonder Woman's mouth twitched once, almost amused. Cecil took a slow breath. Let's focus. He tapped a button. The big screen changed to a satellite view. A faint, strange mark hovered over the planet, not visible to the naked eye, only on sensors. This, Cecil said, is what we picked up during the incident. A signature, a kind of residue. Green Lantern leaned forward. From the portals. Cecil nodded. Yes, but also from the original tier that brought you here. Batman's eyes narrowed. So it's trackable. Cecil looked at Batman. It might be. Superman's voice was calm, meaning someone else can find it. Cecil didn't deny it. Yes. Omni-Man finally spoke, voice smooth. Then we handle it. Batman's head tilted slightly. We? Omni-Man smiled. Earth's defenders. Batman's voice stayed cold. You mean Earth's conqueror in waiting? The room froze. Mark's face went pale. Batman! Omni-Man's eyes sharpened. Careful. Batman didn't move. I am. Superman stepped forward, voice firm. Not like this! Batman didn't look away from Omni-Man. This is exactly how it should be. Cecil's voice cut in, calm but sharp. Enough. Wonder Woman's eyes flicked to Cecil. You say that as if you control them. Cecil met her gaze. I control the room. Flash whispered to Mark. This is the worst team meeting I've ever been in, and I've been in meetings where a guy was literally on fire. Mark didn't respond. Cecil continued, we need to talk about rules of engagement. Green Lantern crossed his arms. We already did. Cecil said, not my rules. Earth's rules. Batman's voice was low. Whose Earth? Cecil didn't answer that. He just said, we do not allow unknown forces to operate freely. Superman held his gaze. We don't operate as weapons. Cecil nodded. Then don't act like a separate government. Batman's eyes narrowed. We're not. Cecil's voice stayed even. Then why did one of you break into my tech bay last night? Flash raised his hand halfway. In my defense, the door was open. Cecil stared. Flash lowered his hand. Okay, it wasn't open. Batman's eyes didn't move. If you're watching us that closely, you already know why. Cecil's jaw tightened by a fraction. I do. I don't approve. Superman spoke again. Cecil, we will cooperate. But cooperation is not ownership. Cecil leaned forward on screen. And your cooperation is not unconditional. Superman said, correct. Cecil's eyes shifted to Batman. And you're already building a list of ways to stop us. Batman's voice was flat. You're building the same list about us. Cecil nodded once. Good. At least we're honest. Wonder Woman looked at Mark then. Voice softer. This is how you live? With allies who treat each other like threats? Mark didn't know what to say. Omni-Man's voice slid in, calm and sharp. We live with reality. Superman turned to Omni-Man. Reality isn't an excuse for cruelty. Omni-Man's smile didn't reach his eyes. And hope isn't an excuse for weakness. Superman's expression stayed steady. Hope is not weakness. The air felt heavy. Then Martian Manhunter spoke, voice gentle but clear. Fear is shaping this room, he said. Some guards shifted. Some heroes looked away. John continued. Fear makes people build cages. Fear makes people swing first. Omni-Man's eyes flicked to John, like he didn't like being read. Cecil's voice stayed calm. Fear keeps my world alive. Batman said, Fear is also how you lose it. Cecil's eyes narrowed. Then tell me your better plan, Batman. Batman didn't hesitate. We find out who opened the tear. We find out who's using portals. We find out what else noticed. Cecil said, and how do you plan to do that? Batman looked at the screen. By not waiting for you to approve it. Cecil's voice cooled. You don't have clearance. Batman's voice was flat. Then I'll take it. Flash whispered, That's so illegal. Green Lantern muttered, That's so Batman. Superman looked between them, then spoke, firm and calm. We do this together. Cecil looked at Superman, then agree to monitoring. Superman said, We agree to communication. Cecil's eyes hardened. Not enough. Batman's voice cut in. You want collars. Cecil didn't deny it. I want insurance. Wonder Woman's hand tightened slightly on her lasso. Insurance becomes chains fast. Cecil's screen went quiet for a moment. Then Cecil said, Meeting adjourned. The screen went black. The room stayed tense, even after the screen died. Mark looked at Superman, then at Omni-Man. Omni-Man pushed off the wall and walked out like the room belonged to him. Mark followed because Mark always did. Superman watched him go, and something in Superman's eyes tightened. Batman stepped closer to Superman, voice low. "He knows," Batman said. Superman didn't ask who. He just said, "Mark's father." Batman nodded. "He felt what you are." Superman's voice was quiet, and he didn't like it. Batman looked toward the door. "He will adjust." Superman asked, "And Cecil?" Batman's mouth barely moved. "Cecil already adjusted. He just pretends it's the first time." Green Lantern sighed. "So what now?" Batman's eyes turned sharp. "Now we stop pretending this is a simple crossover accident." Flash blinked. "Do you ever say normal sentences?" Batman ignored him and looked at Superman. "I want access," Batman said. Superman's voice was calm but firm. "Not by hurting people." Batman didn't flinch. "I don't need to hurt anyone." He paused. "I just need the truth." Angstrom Levy sat on a cracked piece of concrete in a world that had no sun. The sky above him was gray and dead. The buildings behind him were empty shells, a copy of a city that had lost. He liked this place because it was quiet. No heroes, no cameras, no one shouting. He held a small device in his hand, a cheap phone from Mark's world. He tapped the screen and replayed the lake fight. Omni-Man's punch, Superman's block. Angstrom smiled slowly. He didn't need to beat Superman. He didn't need to beat Omni-Man either. He just needed them to do what angry people always did when they met a mirror. Fight themselves. Angstrom leaned back, staring at the dead sky. "New God," he whispered. "Old monster." He imagined the headlines. He imagined the fear. He imagined Cecil trying to lock the League up. He imagined Batman digging into secrets like a knife. He imagined Mark standing between two father figures, both pulling. Angstrom's smile turned sharper. "That's the plan," he said. He lifted his hand and opened a portal the size of a door. On the other side was a different place. Dark, quiet, full of machines, a room inside the GDA. Angstrom didn't step through yet. He just watched. Because sometimes the best move was not to push. It was to let people fall on their own. Batman moved through the GDA like a rumor, not because the halls were empty, because everyone who saw him felt like they weren't supposed to. A guard turned a corner, saw him, opened his mouth. Batman raised one gloved finger in a silent, "Don't." The guard froze. Batman kept walking. John flew above the building, far enough away to look like a shadow against the clouds. His eyes were closed. His mind brushed lightly against mines below, not forcing, not breaking, just nudging, just guiding attention away, not mind control, something gentler, a small push, nothing important here. Look away. John didn't like doing it, but Bruce had asked, and Bruce only asked when he thought the world might end if he didn't. Batman reached a locked door. No sign, no label, only a camera. He didn't punch it. He didn't cut it. He waited until the camera blinked, then tossed a small disc that hummed once. The camera froze on a single frame. Batman opened the door with a thin tool and slipped inside. The room smelled like cold metal and old paper. Rows of file cabinets, server racks, a small table with a lamp that made the shadows sharp. Batman's eyes scanned everything at once. On the table was a folder, not hidden, not locked, almost like it was placed there on purpose. Batman didn't touch it right away. He checked for traps. Nothing obvious. That didn't mean nothing. He finally opened the folder with 2 fingers like it was dirty. Inside were photos, reports, names. One name hit like a hammer, Nolan Grayson Omni-Man. Another line beneath it, Viltrumite classification, extreme. Batman's jaw tightened. He flipped more pages. There were maps of other planets, Notes about conquest patterns. Mentions of a mission. Then, a single page near the end, stamped with a red mark. Evidence package not shared with public hero assets. Batman's eyes narrowed. He heard a soft sound behind him, not a footstep. A screen turning on. Batman turned without flinching. Cecil's face appeared on a small monitor in the corner, calm, like he had been waiting. "You're in my vault," Cecil said. Batman's voice was flat. "Your vault was too easy." Cecil sighed. "No, it wasn't." Batman didn't blink. "You let me in." Cecil didn't deny it. "I made it possible." Batman held the folder up slightly. "So you wanted me to see this?" Cecil nodded once. "I wanted you to understand." Batman's eyes sharpened. "How long have you known?" Cecil's face didn't change. "Long enough." Batman's voice went colder. "Then why is he still flying around like a hero?" Cecil leaned forward slightly. "Because if I move too early, he kills everyone I care about." Batman stared. Cecil added, "And because until yesterday, we didn't have anyone who could stop him if he chose to end the conversation." Batman's eyes narrowed further. "You're using Superman as a deterrent." Cecil's voice stayed even. "I'm using reality." Batman's mouth barely moved. "How did you know my name?" Cecil didn't smile. "You think you're the only detective." Batman stepped closer to the monitor, voice low. "You didn't get it from this world." Cecil's eyes were steady. "You're right." Batman's hand tightened slightly. Cecil continued. "When the tier opened, we scraped data. Energy patterns. Signal echoes. We found traces." Batman's eyes stayed hard. "Traces don't tell you Wayne." Cecil's voice went quiet. "No." Batman waited. Cecil finally said, "I had help." Batman's eyes narrowed. "From who?" Cecil didn't answer. Batman understood the answer was either someone like Angstrom or something worse. He took the folder. "I'm not giving this back." Cecil said, "I didn't ask you to." Batman's head tilted slightly. "Then what do you want?" Cecil's voice was calm. "I want you to do what you do best." Batman said, "Stop monsters." Cecil nodded. "Yes." Batman's voice stayed cold. "Including you if needed." Cecil's expression didn't change. "Fair." Batman turned to leave. Cecil's voice followed him. "One more thing." Batman paused. Cecil said, "If you tell Mark too early, Nolan will know you know. And then you won't like what comes next." Batman didn't answer. He walked out anyway. Because even if Cecil was right, Batman didn't like being told what time to light a fire. Superman found Batman in a quiet corridor. Batman was walking like he always did, already moving toward the next problem. Superman stepped into his path. Batman stopped. They stared at each other for a moment. Superman spoke first. "You went into places you weren't allowed." Batman's voice was flat. "Correct." Superman's eyes were steady. "Did you find what you needed?" Batman didn't lie. "I found what I expected." Superman's jaw tightened slightly. "About Omni-Man?" Batman nodded once. Superman took a slow breath. "We need to be careful." Batman's eyes sharpened. "We need to be fast." Superman said, "Mark is in the middle of this." Batman's voice stayed cold, but not cruel. "That's why we can't be slow." Superman's gaze didn't move. "You want to tell him?" Batman said, "I want him alive." Superman held his gaze. "So do I." They stood there, two kinds of stubborn. Then Superman said, "Cecil is playing chess." Batman said, "So am I." Superman's voice went quieter. "And Nolan?" Batman's mouth barely moved. "Nolan is a bomb, pretending to be a person." Superman looked down the hall, hearing Mark's heartbeat somewhere far away. "We don't turn Mark into a weapon," Superman said. Batman's eyes stayed sharp. "We turn Mark into someone who sees." Superman didn't argue with that. He just said, "Then we do it clean." Batman's voice was flat. Clean isn't always possible. Superman's eyes were firm. "It is for us." Batman stared at him for a long second. Then Batman stepped around him. "Try." Superman didn't stop him. He watched him go, and he felt the weight of this world again. Not the buildings. Not the enemies. The way people here treated truth like a grenade. The alert came 2 hours later. Not from a portal. From space. Cecil's voice hit every comm channel at once. "All assets. Attention. We have an incoming." Mark was already in the air when he heard it. Eve was behind him. The immortal shot up like a bullet, grinning like he finally got what he wanted. Superman rose from the GDA roof, calm face, serious eyes. Green Lantern's ring glowed as he formed a thin shield around the facility without being asked. Flash zipped up, then stopped midair, and looked around like he expected a clipboard to appear. Batman didn't fly. Batman vanished. John floated higher, eyes narrowing as he reached out with his mind. Then Mark felt it. A pressure. A familiar kind of danger that made his stomach drop. Omni-Man appeared beside him in the sky, calm and ready, like this was a routine flight. Mark's throat tightened. "Dad, what is it?" Omni-Man didn't look at him. "Stay close." Mark hated that. Cecil's voice came again. "Object entering atmosphere in 3, 2, 1. A streak of fire cut across the sky. It wasn't a meteor. It changed direction on purpose. It slowed. Then it stopped above the city like the sky itself was holding its breath. A figure hovered there. Tall, broad, cape-like cloth moving behind them. Mark's heart beat too hard. Viltrumite. The figure's eyes swept the world below like they were counting ants. Then their gaze locked on Superman. The Viltrumite smiled. Not friendly. Interested. They dropped straight down. The air boomed as they broke the sound barrier like it was nothing. They stopped a few feet above the street, hovering over an empty intersection, and looked up at the gathered heroes. Their voice carried without effort. "I felt the tear," the Viltrumite said. "I felt the power." Their eyes stayed on Superman. "Show me." Mark's mouth went dry. Omni-Man's face tightened by a fraction. "Leave." The Viltrumite glanced at Omni-Man like he was an old co-worker. "You didn't report," the Viltrumite said. "You didn't call." Omni-Man's jaw clenched. "This planet is under control." The Viltrumite's smile widened. "Not anymore." Superman drifted forward, calm but ready. "Who are you?" The Viltrumite looked at Superman like Superman's words were a small noise. "I am here to measure," the Viltrumite said. "Then I will tell the Empire what I found." Mark's stomach flipped. If the Empire heard about Superman, Mark didn't even want to imagine it. Wonder Woman landed lightly on the street, feet steady. She looked up at the Viltrumite with warrior focus. "You will not threaten this world," she said. The Viltrumite's eyes flicked to her. "You are strong." Wonder Woman didn't flinch. "Yes." The Viltrumite nodded once, like they respected that. Then their gaze returned to Superman. "Show me," they repeated. Superman's eyes stayed calm. "Not here." The Viltrumite tilted their head. "You care about the small lives." Superman said, "Yes." The Viltrumite's smile turned colder. "Good." They moved. Not toward Superman first. Toward the street. Toward the city behind him. It was a simple choice. A cruel one. They lunged toward a nearby building, fast enough that the shockwave cracked windows. Superman moved instantly, intercepting like a wall. He caught the Viltrumite's shoulder and redirected them upward. The air boomed. The Viltrumite laughed as they spun, twisting in Superman's grip and throwing a punch toward Superman's face. Superman blocked it with his forearm. The hit sounded like a hammer on steel. Green Lantern's eyes widened. "Oh, come on!" Flash zipped down to move civilians out of the street. He moved so fast people barely knew they were being carried. He set a whole group behind a concrete barrier, then came back and hovered near Eve. Eve's eyes were wide. "That thing is Viltrumite." Flash blinked. "That's a word that sounds like it comes with a lot of punching." Eve didn't smile. "It does." Above them, Superman and the Viltrumite traded positioning, not just punches. Superman kept turning the fight away from buildings. The Viltrumite kept trying to angle it back. Omni-Man hovered, tense now. Not joining, watching. Mark noticed that too. It made his throat tighten. Wonder Woman launched upward, meeting the Viltrumite mid-air with her sword still sheathed. She didn't go for a cheap cut. She went for control. She slammed a knee into the Viltrumite's side and followed with a punch that would have shattered a tank. The Viltrumite spun, surprised for half a second. Then they grinned. "Good," they said. They grabbed Wonder Woman's wrist. Wonder Woman's eyes narrowed. She twisted, using skill, not just strength, breaking the grip and striking again. The Viltrumite tried to brute force through it. Wonder Woman didn't let them. She fought like a master. And for a moment, Mark saw something rare. A Viltrumite forced to respect technique. Green Lantern formed a giant green cage around the Viltrumite and Superman. Not to trap Superman. To trap the blast. The cage shook as hits landed inside it. Lantern gritted his teeth. "Stay! In! The box!" The Viltrumite punched the cage wall. The green light cracked. Lantern's eyes widened. "Oh, that is cheating!" Flash looked up. "You can't cheat in punching." Lantern snapped. "Apparently you can." Martian Manhunter rose behind the Viltrumite, eyes glowing faintly. He reached out with his mind, not to break, to read. The Viltrumite's mind was hard, sharp, full of war. John felt the thought that mattered most. Signal, report, Empire. John's eyes widened slightly. He spoke into comms. "They will send a message." Cecil's voice came back instantly. "Stop that." Batman's voice cut in. Too late. They came prepared. Mark's blood went cold. "What do we do?" Superman heard it too, and he made a choice. He stopped blocking. For half a second, he surged forward. Not with rage, with purpose. He grabbed the Viltrumite and drove them upward, out of Lantern's cage, out of the lower air where people lived. The Viltrumite laughed as they climbed. "Yes, yes, there it is." Omni-Man shot up after them like a missile. Mark followed, heart pounding. High above the clouds, the world below shrank. The city became quiet shapes. The lake became a dark strip. Here, there were no civilians to use as a shield. The Viltrumite's eyes gleamed. "Now," they said, "show me." Superman didn't answer with words. He answered with speed. He moved faster than Mark expected, even after everything Mark had seen. He struck the Viltrumite once, clean and controlled, sending them back a long distance through the sky. Not to kill, to stop. The Viltrumite snapped back, barely slowed, and slammed into Superman with both hands. They collided like two storms. Omni-Man arrived beside them, face tight with anger now. "Leave," Omni-Man said again. The Viltrumite turned their head slightly. "So you hit him?" Omni-Man's eyes flashed. "You don't understand." The Viltrumite smiled. "I understand enough." Mark hovered nearby, chest tight. He realized something with a sick twist in his stomach. This scout wasn't here to take Earth today. This scout was here to decide if Earth was worth sending an army. And Superman was making the answer complicated. Below them, on the edge of the clouds, a small dot moved. A satellite. A GDA platform. Something with an antenna, turning toward them. Mark's eyes widened. "They're going to send a signal," Mark whispered. The Viltrumite heard him. They grinned. "Yes." Superman's eyes sharpened. He moved again, streaking toward the platform. The Viltrumite chased him. Omni-Man chased the Viltrumite. Mark chased them all, feeling like he was running after a disaster. The platform was small compared to them, but it was enough. The Viltrumite reached out and touched it with one hand. A light blinked. A signal started. Cecil's voice roared through comms. "No!" Batman's voice cut in, cold. They hit send. Green Lantern's voice sounded strained, far below. "Can we unsend it?" Flash answered, "That's not how messages work." Superman grabbed the platform and ripped the transmitter off with a quick twist, crushing it in his fist. But Mark could tell, even without being a tech guy, the message had already left. The Viltrumite laughed, floating backward, arms open like they were presenting a finished trick. "Too late," they said. Omni-Man lunged, face furious now. This time, Omni-Man didn't hold back. He went for a killing blow. Superman caught his arm. "Not like that," Superman said, voice firm. Omni-Man's eyes burned. "We can't leave them alive." Superman's voice stayed calm. "We don't decide life that way." Omni-Man yanked, trying to break free. Superman didn't move. Mark hovered between them, shaking. "Dad," Mark said, voice tight, "stop." Omni-Man snapped his gaze to Mark. For a second, Mark saw something ugly behind the calm mask. Then Omni-Man looked away, jaw clenched like steel. The Viltrumite watched the family moment like it was a joke. "How sweet," they said. "A son who still believes." Mark's fists clenched. "Shut up." The Viltrumite smiled. "Or what? You'll try to be brave?" Wonder Woman rose into the high air behind the Viltrumite, eyes locked. "You have done enough," she said. The Viltrumite turned, still smiling. "You were fun." Then they moved, not toward Wonder Woman, toward open sky, toward escape. A retreat, not because they were losing, but because they had completed the mission. Superman shot forward to stop them. The Viltrumite twisted mid-air, using the momentum to fling a shockwave downward. Not aimed to kill, aimed to distract. It worked. Mark flinched, thinking about the city below, even though they were far above it. Superman flinched too, but only for a fraction. The Viltrumite used that fraction and punched through the air, accelerating away. Omni-Man chased like a predator. Superman chased like a guardian. Mark chased like a kid who didn't know what to do with his own fear. The Viltrumite glanced back once, eyes bright. "I will tell them," they called. "I will tell them there is a God on Earth." Then they dropped straight down into the cloud layer and vanished from sight. Not a portal, just speed. Superman stopped above the clouds and looked down, listening. He could still hear the Viltrumite's movement, faint, far away, heading out over the ocean. He could catch them. He could stop them. He also knew what it would take. Omni-Man hovered beside him, face hard. "Let me," Omni-Man said. Superman's eyes stayed steady. "No." Omni-Man's voice turned low. "You don't understand what you just allowed." Superman looked at him. "I understand you want control." Omni-Man's nostrils flared. "I want survival." Superman's voice didn't rise. "Then start acting like survival includes everyone." Mark hovered between them, breath shaking. Wonder Woman arrived beside Superman, gaze sharp but calm. "We cannot erase what was sent," she said. Green Lantern's voice came through comms, tight. "So, what now?" Batman's voice answered, cold and certain. "Now the Empire comes sooner." Flash's voice followed, small and nervous. "Okay, that's bad. That's really bad." Superman stared down at the world, and he felt the weight of it again. Not the planet. The choice. Every choice here was a trap. Save people and you look weak. Act hard and you become what you hate. Superman turned slightly, looking at Mark. Mark's eyes were wide, scared, angry, confused. A kid carrying a war he didn't ask for. Superman spoke softly, but it carried. "Mark, he said. "We need to talk." Mark swallowed. "About what?" Superman's eyes were steady. "About your father," Superman said. Mark flinched like he'd been hit. Omni-Man's head snapped towards Superman. The air tightened again. Batman's voice came through comms, quiet but sharp. "He knows," Batman said. "He's known." Cecil's voice followed, flat as stone. "Bring them back." Superman didn't move right away. He just looked at Omni-Man. Omni-Man stared back, face calm again, but the calm looked thinner now, like paint over metal. The world below kept turning. People kept living. They didn't know an empire had just been invited sooner than planned. They didn't know their sky had become a beacon, but they would. Soon. 2 weeks later, the sky over Chicago stayed whole. No new tears, no bright cracks. But the feeling of the tear did not leave. It lived in how people looked up more often. It lived in how GDA trucks drove with more speed and less patience. It lived in the way heroes started meeting in locked rooms instead of rooftops. Mark tried to go back to school for 2 days. On the 3rd day, a teacher paused mid-sentence to stare at the wall-mounted TV, because the news was replaying the lake fight again. Mark felt every eye in the room drift toward him, like he had brought the disaster in his backpack. He left at lunch and didn't go back. Now, his routine was training, patrol, and waiting for the next bad thing. The Justice League had their own routine, too. Superman spent mornings doing repairs that would have taken a construction crew a month. He lifted broken beams into place like they were light. He kept his movements slow and careful, so nobody got hurt by accident. Wonder Woman trained with the Immortal in a wide, empty yard behind the GDA facility. The Immortal loved it. He talked big. He laughed loud. He hit hard. Wonder Woman hit harder, but she did not humiliate him. She corrected his footwork like a teacher, and when he got angry, she reminded him that anger was useful only if it listened. Green Lantern helped rebuild power lines and damaged bridges with green constructs, then complained that none of it was cool. He still did it. Martian Manhunter sat in quiet rooms with GDA therapists and emergency workers, helping them sleep without nightmares. He didn't announce it. He didn't need credit. Aquaman left for the ocean for a day, came back annoyed, and told Cecil that several coastal military sites were too loud and too violent. Cecil asked how Aquaman knew. Aquaman stared and said, "It's the ocean. It hears things." Batman did not rebuild anything. Batman rebuilt knowledge. He took Cecil's world apart in his head and put it back together as a map of threats, lies, and pressure points. Cecil knew. He didn't stop him. He just watched. Flash. Flash became a problem in a new way. Because the GDA loved paperwork, and Flash treated paperwork like a speed challenge. It started with the badges. After the Viltrumite Scout, Cecil upgraded the League's temporary cards. New color strip, new tiny warnings on the back, new tracking chip that Flash claimed he could hear buzzing. Cecil did a whole serious speech on the screen. "These badges are for safety," Cecil said. "Wear them at all times." Flash raised a hand. "Do they have lanyards?" Cecil stared for a beat. "Yes." Flash smiled. "Cool." A tray rolled in with lanyards. Flash took his and immediately clipped it to Green Lantern's suit. Lantern swatted his hand away. "Don't touch me." Flash nodded seriously. "Copy that." Then Flash turned to Batman, holding out a badge like he was offering a gift. Batman didn't take it. Flash's smile shrank. "Still doing the no badge thing?" Batman said, "Yes." Flash blinked. "But what if there's like a snack room you can't enter without it?" Batman didn't move. "Then I don't enter." Flash looked genuinely sad. "That's dedication." Cecil's voice came through a nearby speaker, dry and tired. "He doesn't eat in my building anyway." Flash's head snapped toward the speaker. "That's not true. I saw him. Batman cut in. Flash. Flash shut up instantly. Yep, my bad. Cecil printed a Batman badge anyway. He kept it in a drawer. He didn't say why. Everyone knew why. The first real change came on a quiet night. Mark was on patrol with Superman above the city. The air was cold. The streets were calmer than before, but not calm. They drifted between skyscrapers, not talking much. Mark kept glancing at Superman like he wanted to ask something but didn't know how. Superman finally spoke, gentle. "You're holding a question." Mark swallowed. "I'm holding a lot." Superman nodded. "Pick one." Mark's voice came out tight. "You said we needed to talk about my dad." Superman didn't dodge. "Yes." Mark's stomach turned. "Did Cecil tell you something?" Superman looked down at the street, then back to Mark. "I don't need Cecil for this. I saw how your father reacted to you. I saw how he reacted to me. And I saw how he reacted to that Viltrumite." Mark's jaw clenched. "He's trying to protect Earth." Superman's voice stayed soft, but firm. "Is he?" Mark blinked, angry. "Yes." Superman didn't argue with anger. He waited for it to settle. Mark's shoulders dropped slightly. I think so." Superman asked, "Mark, do you know what the Viltrumite Empire does?" Mark's throat tightened. "They conquer." Superman nodded. "And your father is one of them." Mark stared. "He's not like them." Superman's eyes stayed steady. "I hope you're right." Mark's voice cracked. "Are you saying he's lying to me?" Superman didn't say yes. He didn't say no. He said, "I'm saying you deserve the truth." Mark's eyes went wet for a second before he forced them dry. "My whole life is already weird. I don't want—" Superman said, "I know." Mark looked away. "Then why are you pushing?" Superman's voice stayed calm. "Because if the Empire comes, lies will get people killed." Mark's fists clenched. "If the Empire comes, we need my dad." Superman didn't deny that. "You might." Mark snapped. "So what do you want from me?" Superman held his gaze. "I want you to look at what's in front of you, even if it hurts." Mark shook his head. "That's easy for you to say." Superman's face softened. "No, it isn't." Mark turned back fast. "What does that mean?" Superman took a slow breath. "My father sent me away when I was a baby. I grew up with loving parents who weren't my blood. I've spent my life trying to be worthy of what they gave me." He paused, then said quietly, "I've also learned that family can be real and still be complicated." Mark's chest tightened. "So you get it." Superman nodded. "Enough to know I won't force you, but I also won't lie to you." Mark's mouth trembled. "What do you know?" Superman's eyes stayed steady. "I know your father hides parts of himself when you're near. I know he watches you like you're important for more than love. And I know he is afraid of losing control." Mark's voice came out small. "My dad isn't afraid of anything." Superman said, "Everyone is afraid of something." Mark looked down at the street far below. Cars moved like little toys. People walked like dots. He whispered, "If he's lying, then what am I?" Superman answered right away, "You're Mark." Mark let out a shaky breath, like that helped more than it should. Superman continued, "You don't have to decide everything tonight, but you should talk to him. Not as a kid asking a parent, as a hero asking a leader." Mark swallowed. "He won't tell me." Superman said, "Then I'll be there, not to attack him, to make sure the truth can exist in the room." Mark stared at Superman, scared and grateful at the same time. Then Mark's calm crackled. Cecil's voice, "All assets, come in, now." Mark's stomach dropped. "What is it?" Cecil didn't sound dramatic. That was the problem. "We got a message," Cecil said, "from space." They gathered in the GDA briefing room. Same harsh lights, same long table. Cecil was on the screen again, but this time his calm had a sharp edge. A star map filled the screen behind him. A blinking point hovered near Earth's orbit. "We intercepted a transmission," Cecil said. "It's Viltrumite. It's short." Mark's blood turned cold. Cecil nodded to a tech. The room filled with a voice that sounded like it was carved from stone. "This world has changed," the voice said. "A power exists that is not Viltrumite. You will be evaluated. You will comply. Or you will be removed." The message ended. No name, no time, just a threat. Green Lantern muttered, "That's rude." Flash whispered to Mark, "That's like an eviction notice, but for a planet." Mark didn't reply. He felt like he couldn't breathe right. Wonder Woman's eyes stayed hard. "They will come." Aquaman crossed his arms. "And they will bring war." The Immortal cracked his knuckles like he was excited and terrified at once. "Finally!" Eve stared at the map, jaw tight. "Not finally. Not like this." Omni-Man stood near the back, arms crossed, face calm. Too calm. Batman's eyes locked on him. Superman's eyes locked on him too, but with something different. Not hatred. Expectation. Cecil spoke again. "This is why I wanted monitoring." Batman said, "This is why you hoard secrets." Cecil didn't deny it. "This is why I stay alive." Green Lantern pointed at the map. "So what's the plan?" Cecil leaned forward slightly. "The plan is to survive, and to not get conquered." Wonder Woman's voice was steady. "Survival without a soul is still loss." Cecil's eyes flicked to her. "I'll accept lectures after the planet is safe." Superman stepped forward. "Cecil, a threat like this changes your rules." Cecil said, "It doesn't change them. It proves them." Batman's voice cut in, cold. "You don't get to chain heroes and call it safety." Cecil stared. "And you don't get to run your own war on my planet." Batman didn't flinch. "Watch me." The air tightened again. Then Omni-Man finally spoke, voice smooth. "This is simple," Omni-Man said. "We prepare. We fight. We win." Mark turned to him, eyes wide. "Dad, you know them." Omni-Man looked at Mark like Mark was asking the wrong question in public. "We don't have time for this," Omni-Man said. Mark's voice rose. "We always have time for this. You're always—" Omni-Man's eyes sharpened. "Mark!" The single word was a warning. Superman stepped between them, not blocking Mark, but changing the shape of the moment. "Let him speak," Superman said. Omni-Man's gaze snapped to Superman. "This is not your family." Superman's voice stayed calm. "It's not. But it is my concern if your secrets put this world at risk." Omni-Man's jaw tightened. Cecil's voice came through the speakers. "Omni-Man, step aside." Omni-Man didn't move. Cecil continued, "I'm done pretending we're partners." Omni-Man's smile returned. Slow. "You were pretending?" Cecil's face didn't change. "Yes." Batman's voice was flat. "He's about to trigger something." Flash whispered, "He triggers a lot of things." Batman ignored him. Cecil tapped a button. The lights in the room shifted. A low hum began under the floor. Mark felt it. A vibration. Like the building was waking up. Omni-Man's eyes narrowed. "Cecil." Cecil's voice stayed even. "Insurance." Omni-Man took one step forward. Superman moved at the same time. Not fast, but certain. "Stop," Superman said. Omni-Man's eyes went cold. "Move!" Superman didn't move. Mark's heart slammed. "Dad, don't—" Omni-Man's voice snapped. "Mark, stay out of this!" Mark shook. "I can't." The hum under the floor grew louder. Batman's eyes flicked to the walls. He had already spotted the hidden panels. He had already guessed what was inside them. Cecil said, "Omni-Man, you're standing in a room designed for you." Omni-Man's smile faded. "You think you can hold me?" Cecil said, "No, I think I can slow you down. Long enough." Omni-Man's gaze flicked to Superman. Long enough for him. Superman's voice stayed quiet. "This is not how this should go." Cecil said, This is how it has to go. Wonder Woman's eyes narrowed. You built a cage around a man you claimed was your protector. Cecil answered. I built a cage around a man I knew was a threat. Mark felt his stomach twist. Cecil, what are you saying? Cecil's voice didn't soften. Mark, your father is a Viltrumite agent. Mark's world went silent. He couldn't hear the hum anymore. He couldn't hear Flash whispering, "Oh no." He couldn't hear Green Lantern swear under his breath. He only heard his own heartbeat, loud and stupid. Mark stared at his dad. Omni-Man stared at Cecil. Then Omni-Man looked at Mark, and for the first time, Omni-Man looked tired. Not tired like Mark after training. Tired like someone who had carried a lie for too long. Mark, Omni-Man said, voice low, not here. Mark's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Superman's voice came gently. Tell him. Omni-Man's eyes flashed. You don't get to order me. Superman's eyes stayed steady. I'm not ordering. I'm asking you to be honest with your son. Omni-Man's jaw worked like he wanted to bite the words in half. Then he made a choice. He moved. Not at Cecil. Not at Batman. At the wall. He punched through it like it wasn't there and shot into the night sky. The building shook. Alarms screamed. Cecil's voice snapped. Do not pursue. Mark chased anyway. Because Mark didn't know how to not chase. Superman followed, fast but controlled. Wonder Woman followed too, sword now in hand, not drawn for blood, but for readiness. Flash started to go, then looked at Cecil's screen like a kid waiting for permission. Cecil shouted, "No!" Flash hovered, torn, then looked at Mark's disappearing streak. He whispered, "Sorry," and ran after them anyway. Batman didn't chase. Batman vanished into the GDA like smoke. Because the fight in the sky was not the only fight happening tonight. Mark caught up to his dad above the lake. Not the same spot as before, but close enough that it felt like a bad joke. Omni-Man hovered in the dark, arms hanging at his sides now, cape moving slowly. He didn't turn when Mark arrived. Mark stopped a few feet away, shaking so hard he hated himself for it. Tell me it's not true, Mark said. Omni-Man didn't answer right away. Mark's voice cracked. Tell me. Omni-Man finally turned. His face looked like it always did, strong, calm, but the eyes were different. They looked like someone had taken a mirror and cracked it. Mark, Omni-Man said, you don't understand the scale of what's coming. Mark shouted, I don't care about the scale, I care about you. Superman hovered behind Mark, silent, letting this be theirs. Wonder Woman hovered to the side, eyes watchful. Flash arrived and immediately stopped himself from talking, which was an achievement. Omni-Man glanced at Superman. You brought an audience. Mark snapped, Stop changing the subject. Omni-Man's gaze returned to Mark. His voice went lower. I was sent here. Mark's stomach dropped. Omni-Man continued, My people don't negotiate. They don't ask. They take worlds. Mark's eyes burned. And you were going to help them take ours? Omni-Man's jaw tightened. I was going to prepare it. Mark's voice went small, broken. Prepare it for conquest. Omni-Man didn't deny it. The denial would have been easier. Mark felt his breath shake out of him. You lied to Mom. Omni-Man's face twitched. Mark screamed, You lied to me! The sound echoed across the water. Superman didn't move. He didn't interrupt. He just stayed ready, because pain like this could turn into violence in a heartbeat. Omni-Man's voice turned sharp, defensive. I did what I had to do. Mark shook. No, you did what they told you. Omni-Man's eyes flashed. You think this world matters to them? You think they care about your little... He stopped himself. It was too late. Mark's face twisted like he had been slapped. Superman's voice came, soft but firm. Nolan. Omni-Man's head snapped toward Superman. Don't say my name like you know me. Superman held his gaze. I know what it is to come from a harsh place. I know what it is to be shaped by a mission. Omni-Man scoffed. Then you should understand why your hope is useless. Superman's eyes stayed steady. Hope isn't useless. It's why Mark is still standing in front of you. Mark's voice was shaking. Dad, was any of it real? Omni-Man's face hardened. Yes. Mark blinked. Yes? Omni-Man's jaw clenched. I didn't expect any of it. I didn't expect your mother. I didn't expect you. Mark whispered, but you still planned to hand us over. Omni-Man's voice dropped. I planned to make it painless. Mark's hands clenched into fists. That's not love. Omni-Man's eyes sharpened. Love. He laughed once, short and harsh. Mark. Love is weakness to them. Mark shouted, Then why are you still here? Omni-Man's mouth opened. He didn't have a clean answer. That was the worst answer of all. Superman spoke again. Calm. Nolan. The Empire already knows about me. About this change. If you keep playing both sides, you'll lose your son, and you'll still lose control. Omni-Man's gaze flicked to Superman, full of anger. Then he moved. He lunged at Superman like a spear. Superman caught him mid-air. The impact boomed, but they were far enough out that the city didn't shatter. Wonder Woman shot forward, ready to help. Superman held a hand out, stopping her with a simple gesture. This wasn't a war move. This was a boundary. Omni-Man strained against Superman's grip, trying to push through with raw force. Superman didn't fight him with rage. He fought him like he fought everything here. Controlled, relocating, containing. Omni-Man twisted, trying to break free. Superman shifted their position again, keeping them over open water. Mark hovered, watching. Breath stuck. He had never seen his dad held like this for longer than a moment. Omni-Man's voice came out tight with fury. You're in my way. Superman's voice stayed even. I'm in front of Mark. Omni-Man's eyes flicked to Mark. The fury stuttered. Just a fraction. Superman used that fraction and pushed Omni-Man back. Not a punch, but a firm shove that forced space between them. Omni-Man hovered, breathing harder now. Not because he was tired, because he was losing control. Mark's voice came out small. Dad, stop. Omni-Man's eyes locked on Mark. Then he did the worst thing. He tried to pull Mark in. Come with me, Omni-Man said, low and urgent. You're Viltrumite. You're strong. You can survive what's coming. You can help me handle it. Mark's mouth fell open. You want me to join you? Omni-Man's voice turned intense. I want you alive. Mark's eyes filled again. And Mom? Omni-Man's face tightened. Mark! Mark shouted. And Mom? Omni-Man didn't answer. Mark's chest felt like it was tearing. Superman's voice came quietly. Mark. Mark turned to Superman, angry and helpless. Don't! Superman didn't flinch. I'm not here to steal your father. I'm here to help you survive what he's doing. Mark's voice shook. I don't know what to do. Superman's eyes stayed steady. Then do the simplest true thing. Mark swallowed. What's that? Superman said. Say no. Mark turned back to his dad. Omni-Man looked at him like he was watching a door close. Mark whispered, No. Omni-Man's face hardened. Mark! Mark's voice rose. No! You don't get to use me like a tool! Omni-Man's jaw clenched. I'm trying to save you! Mark screamed, You're trying to save your mission! Omni-Man moved again, not toward Superman, toward Mark. Superman intercepted instantly, body between them like a wall. Omni-Man slammed into Superman, and the air cracked again. Flash flinched and whispered, Okay. This is officially the scariest family argument ever. Wonder Woman's eyes stayed cold. Be ready. Superman's voice stayed firm. Nolan, stop! Omni-Man roared. Move! Superman didn't. Omni-Man threw punches now, hard and fast, trying to break through. Superman took them, blocked them, redirected them, never letting Omni-Man's line reach Mark. Mark watched, shaking. He could see it clearly now. Superman was not trying to win. Superman was trying to protect. That difference mattered. Omni-Man finally changed tactics. He stopped punching. He grabbed Superman's cape. He yanked. He tried to drag Superman downward toward the city, toward civilians, toward moral pressure. Superman's eyes sharpened. He refused. He surged upward with a sudden burst of speed, pulling Omni-Man with him into thinner air where no one could be used as a shield. Omni-Man snarled as the cold bit his face. Superman held him there, both hands on his shoulders. "Listen," Superman said, voice calm but heavy. "If you cross this line, there is no going back. Not with Mark. Not with anyone." Omni-Man's eyes burned. "You think you can threaten me?" Superman's gaze didn't waver. "I'm not threatening you. I'm warning you." Omni-Man's jaw clenched so hard his teeth creaked. Then he did something small. He looked away. Not in fear. In shame. Mark saw it, even from a distance. And it made Mark's chest ache worse than any punch. Omni-Man's voice came out lower. "You don't know what the Empire will do." Superman answered. "Then help us stop them." Omni-Man laughed once, bitter. "You can't stop them." Wonder Woman's voice carried through the air. "Then we die fighting." Omni-Man glanced at her, almost amused. Easy words for a warrior. Wonder Woman's eyes stayed sharp. Easy lies for a conqueror. Omni-Man's face tightened. Mark whispered, "Dad, please." Omni-Man looked at Mark again. For a moment, it looked like he might come back. Then the old mission returned to his eyes, like a mask snapping into place. He backed away, slowly. Not from fear. From decision. "This world is already marked," Omni-Man said. "They will come. They will see you." He pointed at Mark. "They will see what you are." Mark's throat tightened. "So what? I'm supposed to become like you?" Omni-Man's voice went hard. "You're supposed to survive." Mark's eyes burned. "I'd rather die as me." Omni-Man's face twitched. Then he turned his head slightly, listening. Superman did too. A small sound. High above, a drone, a GDA drone, tracking them. Cecil's eyes, always watching. Omni-Man's lips curled. He looked at Superman one last time. "You changed the schedule." Superman said. "Then we changed the outcome." Omni-Man smiled, thin and sharp. "Good luck." Then Omni-Man shot upward and away, not toward the city, but toward open sky. In seconds, he was a dot. In 20 seconds, he was gone. Mark hovered there, breathing like he had run a marathon, eyes fixed on the emptiness where his father had been. Flash drifted closer, voice small. "Mark." Mark didn't answer. Wonder Woman moved beside Mark, not touching him, but close enough to say, "You are not alone." Superman came closer too. Mark finally spoke, voice broken. He left. Superman nodded. "Yes." Mark whispered, "What if he comes back with them?" Superman's eyes stayed steady. "Then we'll be ready." Mark laughed once, a horrible sound. "Ready? For an empire?" Superman's voice stayed calm. "Ready doesn't mean we win easily. It means we don't give up before we start." Mark turned toward the city and started flying back, slow, like the air was heavy. Back at the GDA, everything moved fast. Cecil didn't celebrate. He didn't panic on screen. He did the third thing. He reorganized. He called meetings. He moved units. He locked down airspace. He shifted satellites. He sent agents to Debbie Grayson's house before Mark even landed, not to threaten, but to protect. When Mark arrived, Cecil was waiting in person for once. He stood in a hallway, hands in pockets, face calm like he was about to talk about weather. Mark hovered down and landed hard, boots scraping the floor. Cecil didn't flinch. Mark's voice shook. You knew. Cecil's eyes stayed steady. Yes. Mark's fists clenched. You let me live with him. Cecil's voice was quiet. I let you live. Period. Mark's eyes burned. Don't do that. Don't talk like you saved me. Cecil nodded once. Fair. Mark swallowed, chest tight. Is my mom safe? Cecil's voice turned softer, but still controlled. She will be guarded. Mark snapped. By who? You? Cecil looked past Mark toward Superman and Wonder Woman entering the hall. Cecil said, by everyone who wants this world to stay free. Superman stepped forward. Cecil, no cages, no revenge. Cecil's eyes flicked to Superman. You think I want revenge? Batman's voice came from the shadows, because of course it did. He wants control. Cecil didn't deny it. I want a plan. Batman stepped into the light. He held a thin folder. Mark's stomach dropped just seeing it. Batman's voice was flat. This is everything Cecil has, and everything he didn't show you. Mark's throat tightened. You had that? Batman nodded once. I found it. He let me find it. Mark looked at Cecil. You let him? Cecil said, I needed him to see it too. Mark's voice rose. So you used me like bait. Cecil's face stayed calm. You were always bait, Mark. Nolan chose you, not me. Mark's eyes went wide with hurt. Superman stepped in again, voice firm. Cecil. Cecil looked at him. What? Superman said. Say it like a human being. Cecil stared for a beat. Then his voice lowered. Mark. I'm sorry. Mark blinked, stunned. Cecil continued. I don't regret keeping the world alive, but I regret the weight you carried without knowing why. Mark's hands trembled. What happens now? Batman answered before Cecil could. We prepare. Green Lantern walked in, rubbing his neck. For an empire. Flash arrived behind him, badge swinging. Also, you guys, I may have accidentally authorized myself to access the cafeteria. Batman glanced at him. Now? Flash shrugged. Stress. Wonder Woman's eyes flicked to Cecil. You asked for monitoring. You asked for chains. Cecil met her gaze. And now? Wonder Woman's voice was steady. Now you have something better. Cecil frowned. What? Wonder Woman said, allies. Cecil didn't look convinced. Superman stepped forward, voice clear. Here are the terms. Cecil's eyes narrowed. Terms. Superman said, we will help defend this Earth. We will train where we can. We will share what we know about strategy and teamwork. But we will not be owned. We will not be used as a threat against your own people. Batman added, cold, and you will not build secret cages for us. Cecil stared at them. Then he said, you're asking me to trust you. Superman nodded. Yes. Cecil looked at Batman. Him too. Batman said, no. Flash whispered, Honesty King. Cecil exhaled slowly. Then he did something unexpected. He nodded. One condition, Cecil said. Communication. If you leave the planet, you tell me. If you engage a Viltrumite, you tell me. If you find Angstrom Levy, you tell me. Batman's voice was flat. He's still active. Cecil's eyes stayed steady. Yes. Batman's gaze sharpened. You didn't mention that earlier. Cecil didn't blink. You didn't ask. Batman's mouth tightened. I did. Cecil paused, then said, fine. He's active, and he's watching. Superman's jaw tightened. Then we handle that too. Cecil looked at Mark. Mark, you should go home. Mark's voice was empty. Home? Cecil said, your mother needs you. Mark's throat tightened. She doesn't even know. Cecil's voice softened a fraction. She knows more than you think. Mark stared, then turned away. Superman spoke gently. Mark, I'll come with you. Mark looked back, eyes wet. Why? Superman's voice stayed steady. Because you shouldn't walk into that alone. Mark swallowed and nodded once. He didn't say thank you. He couldn't. Debbie Grayson opened the door and saw her son standing there with a stranger in a blue suit. Her face shifted through a whole storm in 2 seconds. She looked at Mark first. Then she looked at Superman. Then she looked past them, like she expected Nolan to be floating behind the tree. He wasn't. Debbie's voice was quiet. Mark. Mark's mouth opened, but his voice broke. Debbie's eyes filled. She didn't wait for the words. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around Mark, like she was holding him together. Mark clung to her, shaking. Superman stood a respectful distance away, eyes lowered, giving them the moment. Debbie finally looked up at Superman, tears on her face. "Who are you?" she asked, voice sharp with fear. Superman's voice was gentle. "I'm someone trying to help." Debbie's eyes narrowed. Help with what? Mark pulled back, wiping his face with his sleeve like a kid. He looked at his mom, eyes wide and broken. "He's gone," Mark whispered. Debbie's face hardened. "Where?" Mark shook his head. "Mom." Debbie understood. Her knees almost buckled. She grabbed the doorframe. Then she did something that made Superman respect her deeply. She didn't scream. She didn't collapse. She took a shaky breath and said, "Tell me." Mark told her. Not every detail, but enough. Viltrumite. Mission. Conquest. Lies. Debbie's face turned pale, then red, then pale again. When Mark finished, Debbie stared out the window at the dark sky. Her voice came out small. "All those years." Mark whispered, "I'm sorry." Debbie turned sharply. "No." She grabbed Mark's face with both hands. "No. Don't you dare apologize for him." Mark's eyes filled again. Debbie's voice shook. "You are not him." Mark nodded, choking. Debbie looked at Superman then. "You," she said, voice firm. "You stopped him?" Superman nodded. "We stopped a fight from hurting people. He chose to leave." Debbie's jaw clenched. "He always chooses." Superman's eyes softened. "Yes." Debbie stared at him for a long moment, then said something simple. "Stay," she said. Superman blinked. "What?" Debbie's voice was tight. "Stay near my son, because I don't trust this world to take care of him." Superman nodded once. "I will." Debbie exhaled, shaky, then stepped back. Her voice went quieter. "Mark, you have to keep being you." Mark whispered, "I don't know if I can." Debbie said, "Yes, you can." She swallowed hard. "And when he comes back," Debbie added, voice like steel, "you remember this." Mark's throat tightened. "Remember what?" Debbie looked at him, eyes wet but fierce. "That he left," Debbie said, "and you stayed." Mark nodded, trembling. Superman felt something settle in his chest. This world was brutal, but it still had people like her. People who refused to let cruelty rewrite their souls. 3 days later, Angstrom Levy made his move, not with a portal over a hospital, with a door inside a shadow. Batman was alone in a quiet GDA storage room, looking through equipment Sissel pretended not to miss. A portal the size of a closet door opened behind him without a sound. Batman didn't jump. He just turned, already holding a small device in his hand. Angstrom leaned out, smiling like a man who loved drama. "Hi, Batman," Angstrom said. Batman's voice was flat. "You're late." Angstrom's smile sharpened. "I was enjoying the show." Batman didn't blink. "What do you want?" Angstrom stepped fully into the room. He looked thinner than before, but his eyes were brighter. "I want to offer you something," Angstrom said. Batman's hand didn't move. "No." Angstrom laughed. "You don't even know what it is." Batman said, "If it's from you, it's poison." Angstrom pressed a hand to his own chest like he was hurt. "That's unfair." Batman's eyes stayed cold. "It's accurate." Angstrom's grin returned. Fine, I'll make it simple. I can send you home. Batman paused for half a second. Not because he was tempted, because he was measuring. Angstrom leaned in, eyes hungry. Your team wants to stay. Your blue god wants to fix this world. Your world needs you. And you're stuck here in a bunker with a man who prints badges like they're magic. Batman's voice was flat. Get to the point. Angstrom's smile widened. Help me break Superman's symbol. Make him look like a threat. Make Cecil fear him. Make Mark doubt him. Batman's eyes narrowed. You want this world to eat itself. Angstrom shrugged. It's already chewing. Batman took one slow step closer. You don't understand, Superman. Angstrom's eyes glittered. Oh, I do. That's why he's fun. He's the one who won't cross the line. Batman's voice went lower. Then you'll push civilians in front of him until he breaks. Angstrom smiled. Exactly. Batman's hand moved. Not toward Angstrom. Toward the portal edge. He tossed his device through the doorway. It stuck to the frame and hummed. Angstrom's smile faltered. What did you… Batman stepped forward fast, grabbing Angstrom's wrist. Angstrom tried to open another portal. The device on the frame crackled. The portal wavered. Angstrom's eyes went wide with sudden anger. You… Batman's voice was cold. You don't get to play chess with children. Angstrom snarled and yanked away, ripping his wrist free with brute desperation. The portal flickered again, then snapped shut. Angstrom vanished. Batman stood alone in the storage room, breathing slow. He looked at the empty air where Angstrom had been. Then he spoke into his comm, voice low. He's escalating, Batman said. Cecil's voice came back instantly. I know. Batman said, he offered me a way home. Cecil paused. Did you take it? Batman's voice was flat. No. Cecil's voice went dry. Good, because I'd have had to shoot you. Batman didn't react. You'd miss. Cecil sighed. Probably. Batman looked at the device in his hand, now useless without the portal. He wants Superman to break, Batman said. Cecil's voice was quiet. Then don't let him. Batman's eyes narrowed. I don't control Superman. Cecil said, no, but you can control the battlefield. Batman's mouth tightened. He hated when Cecil said things that sounded like him. The next Viltrumite sign did not come as a message. It came as a silence. Satellites went blind for 10 seconds. 10 seconds didn't sound like much. But in those 10 seconds, every hero's skin prickled like a storm had passed close. Superman hovered high above the city, listening. He heard nothing. That was the problem. Then he heard it. A rush of air far above the clouds. A pressure shift. Someone moving fast, outside normal detection. Superman's eyes narrowed. Wonder Woman rose beside him. They're here. Superman nodded. Yes. Green Lantern's ring glowed. How many? Superman listened harder. Then he said the sentence everyone feared. I can't tell, Superman said. Mark rose next to them, face pale. That means more than one. Flash whispered, that's so unfair. Batman's voice came through comms, sharp. Don't scatter. They want you separated. Cecil's voice followed tight. All assets fall back to defensive positions. Green Lantern muttered, he loves defensive positions. Superman's voice was calm. We hold the line. We protect people. Then the sky above the lake shimmered. Not a tear. A ripple. Two figures appeared like they had been there all along, and the world just noticed late. Viltrumites. Both older than Mark. Both calm. Both looking bored. One of them smiled slightly when he saw Superman. So, the lead Viltrumite said, voice carrying, the scout was correct. He looked down toward the city. This world is now valuable. Mark's stomach dropped. Superman hovered forward. Leave! The Viltrumite laughed softly. You're brave." His eyes flicked to Mark. "And the child is real." Mark's face tightened. "I'm not a child." The Viltrumite smiled wider. "To us, you are." Wonder Woman moved forward, voice sharp. "You will not touch him." The second Viltrumite glanced at Wonder Woman with mild respect. "Warrior." Then he looked at Superman again. "We are not here to conquer today." Green Lantern blinked. "That's good?" The Viltrumite's smile stayed. "We are here to set terms." Cecil's voice came through comms. "Do not engage unless—" Batman cut in. "He's stalling. He's reading you." Superman didn't flinch. "State your terms." The lead Viltrumite's eyes gleamed. "Submit." Flash whispered. "Classic." The Viltrumite continued. "You, Kryptonian power. You will kneel and you will serve, or you will be removed." Superman's voice stayed calm. "No." The Viltrumite tilted his head. "Then you will die." Superman's eyes stayed steady. "Then I will fight." The Viltrumite smiled like that pleased him. Then he looked at Mark again. "And you will either join your people, or be made an example." Mark's fists clenched. Superman's voice turned firmer. "He decides who he is." The Viltrumite shrugged. "Not for long." Wonder Woman's hand tightened on her lasso. "Enough talking." The Viltrumite nodded. "Agreed." He moved. Not in a straight line. He moved like a thought. He appeared in front of Superman and punched. Superman blocked. The shockwave rolled across the lake. Green Lantern formed a wide green dome over the city edge, catching the worst of the blast so windows didn't shatter. He grunted. "You're welcome." The second Viltrumite lunged toward Mark. Mark surged forward to meet him, fear turning into focus. They collided mid-air. Mark felt the impact in his bones. The Viltrumite smiled while fighting, like this was a casual test. "You're strong," he said, "but you're soft." Mark gritted his teeth. "Shut up." Superman and the lead Viltrumite traded blows above them, but Superman kept angling the fight away from the city. The Viltrumite tried to push it back. Superman refused. Wonder Woman joined Superman's fight, striking with clean technique and divine strength, forcing the Viltrumite to respect her angles. Green Lantern tried to bind the lead Viltrumite with thick constructs. The Viltrumite broke them with raw force. Lantern swore. "Okay, so that's a no." Flash moved below, evacuating people from the lakefront, moving them behind thicker buildings. He zipped back up near Cecil's drone and shouted, "Hey, we're doing great! Nobody die!" Cecil didn't respond. Batman's voice came through comms, cold and clear. "Mark, don't trade punches. Make him chase you." Mark heard it and obeyed, because Batman sounded like a knife. Mark pulled back, then darted sideways, forcing the Viltrumite to follow at an angle. The Viltrumite chased, annoyed. Mark led him away from Superman, away from Wonder Woman, away from the city, over open water, over empty sky. The Viltrumite smiled again, running. Mark snapped, positioning. The Viltrumite laughed. "Good." Then he tried to grab Mark's throat. Mark twisted, barely avoiding it. His skin crawled at how close it was. Above, Superman's fight shifted. The lead Viltrumite struck harder, trying to crack Superman's guard with pure force. Superman took it, blocked, returned controlled hits that pushed the Viltrumite back. The Viltrumite's eyes narrowed. "You're holding back," he said. Superman's voice was firm. "I'm choosing." The Viltrumite smiled, then said something that hit like a blade. "Your choice will kill them," he said, nodding toward the city. Superman's eyes hardened. "No." The Viltrumite's gaze flicked down. Then he moved. He tried to dart past Superman, aimed straight for the city. Superman accelerated and intercepted, grabbing the Viltrumite mid-flight and stopping him dead in the air. They hung there for a breath. The Viltrumite grinned. "There it is." Superman's jaw tightened. "You don't get to use them." The Viltrumite's voice dropped. "Then kneel and spare them." Superman's eyes stayed steady. "No," Superman said again. The Viltrumite's grin vanished. For the first time, his patience snapped. He roared and slammed Superman downward. Superman caught himself inches above the lake surface and shot back up, refusing to let the fight hit the shoreline. Wonder Woman struck the Viltrumite's side, forcing him to turn. Green Lantern formed a layered barrier between the fight and the city. His ring flared, his face strained. "I can hold this for not long." Flash zipped up and yelled, "So maybe wrap it up and now?" Batman's voice cut in, sharp. "Superman, he's not here to finish you. He's here to map you." Superman understood instantly. He stopped trying to win through hits. He changed the fight's meaning. Superman shot upward with sudden speed, pulling the Viltrumite into higher air where the pressure dropped and sound faded. Wonder Woman followed. Green Lantern followed as far as he could, then stopped, ring flickering. "I hate space," Lantern muttered. Superman spoke in the thinner air, voice calm, eyes hard. "You want to measure me?" Superman said. "Measure this." He didn't punch harder. He stopped being pulled. He held the Viltrumite in place with pure strength, locking him like a vice. The Viltrumite strained, shocked by the control. Superman's face stayed calm, but the message was clear. "You do not move me." The Viltrumite's eyes widened slightly. Then he smiled again, but it wasn't happy. "Enough," he said. He twisted and slipped free with a brutal burst of force. He backed away, breathing steady. He looked at Superman, then at Wonder Woman, then down toward Mark, fighting the second Viltrumite. He spoke, loud enough to carry. "This world is not ready," he said. Green Lantern, far below, shouted, "Hey, that's our line." The Viltrumite ignored him. He looked at Superman again. "We will return," he said, "with more, with certainty." Then he did something that made Mark's blood run cold. He smiled toward the city. "And you will break," he said, "because you care." Then the two Viltrumites shot upward and vanished into the dark. They didn't win. They didn't lose. They left with information. And that was worse. Superman hovered, breathing slow, eyes on the empty sky. Wonder Woman drifted beside him. "They will come back." Superman nodded. "Yes." Mark flew back, bruised and shaking, eyes wide with terror and anger. "They're coming," Mark whispered. Superman looked at him and said, simple and clear, "Then we stand." Afterward, there was no cheering, no speeches, just quiet work. Cecil called it a successful deterrence. Batman called it a warning shot. Green Lantern called it the worst homework assignment ever. Flash asked if anyone knew how to unsend an empire. No one laughed. Cecil met the Justice League in a smaller room. No cameras this time. He sat at the head of the table, finally in person again. He looked older than he had 2 weeks ago. "Okay," Cecil said. "You proved something." Batman said, "We proved you need us." Cecil's eyes narrowed. "Don't get arrogant." Superman's voice was calm. "Cecil, we're staying." Cecil blinked. "Staying?" Superman nodded. "Not forever, but long enough to make this world harder to take." Cecil stared at him for a moment, like he didn't trust good news. Then he said, "Under my coordination." Batman said, "Under communication." Cecil's jaw tightened. "You're really going to do this?" Wonder Woman's voice was steady. "Yes." Cecil looked at Mark. "And you?" Mark swallowed. He thought of his mother. He thought of his father leaving. He thought of the Viltrumite smile. He nodded. "I'm staying." Cecil exhaled slowly. "Fine." He reached into a folder and slid out a stack of papers. Flash leaned forward instantly. "Oh no." Cecil ignored him. "These are agreements." Green Lantern groaned. "Of course they are." Cecil slid one toward Superman. "Rules of cooperation." Superman glanced at the paper, then at Cecil. "No collars." Cecil said, "No collars." Batman stared at Cecil. "No secret prisons." Cecil's mouth tightened. No secret prisons. Wonder Woman's eyes sharpened. No using fear as your only tool. Cecil hesitated, then said, I'll try. Flash raised a hand. Can I get a badge that says, not for conquering? Cecil stared. No. Flash nodded seriously. Fair. Batman didn't sign anything. He just said, if you break this, we break you. Cecil didn't argue. He just slid a final badge across the table. A fresh Batman badge. Batman looked at it like it was a snake. He didn't take it. Cecil sighed. It's in case you get shot by someone who thinks you're trespassing. Batman said, I won't. Cecil said, you will. Batman stared. Then Batman took the badge, not to obey. To avoid a dumb death. Flash gasped like he'd witnessed a miracle. He did it! Batman looked at Flash. Say one more word. Flash zipped his lips with his fingers. Superman watched the moment and felt something steady settle into place. Not trust. Not peace. Something rougher. A working alliance. In this world, that was almost a miracle, too. A week later, Mark stood on a rooftop with Superman. The city lights below looked normal again. Normal was a costume the world wore to keep moving. Mark held a small piece of paper in his hand. A GDA form. He stared at it like it was insulting him personally. Superman glanced. What's that? Mark sighed. Cecil says I need to sign it because I'm an asset. Superman's eyes narrowed slightly. You're not an asset. Mark let out a tired laugh. Tell him that. Superman looked out at the city. I will. Mark was quiet for a moment. Then he said, I keep thinking I'll wake up and this will be a dream. Superman's voice was gentle. And then, you remember, it's real. Mark nodded, throat tight. Yeah. Superman didn't push. He just stayed there. Mark finally whispered, Do you ever get bored? Like you're so strong. Does it ever feel pointless? Superman thought for a moment, then said, It can. Mark looked up fast. Really? Superman nodded. Power without purpose can feel empty. That's why the purpose matters. Mark swallowed. My dad, his purpose was a lie. Superman's voice stayed calm. Then you choose a real one. Mark's eyes burned. I don't know if I can be like you. Superman shook his head slightly. Don't be like me. Mark blinked. What? Superman looked at him. Steady. Be like you. The version of you that saves people even when it hurts. Mark's breath shook out. Okay. Below them, a siren wailed in the distance. Mark's body tensed on instinct. Superman didn't move yet. He just said, We go when we're needed. Mark nodded. They launched together into the night. In a quiet GDA office, Cecil sat alone and stared at a screen. A world map. Red dots. Threat lines. A new column had been added to the side. It wasn't labeled weapons. It wasn't labeled assets. It was labeled allies. Cecil didn't like that word, but he kept it anyway. A knock came at the door. Cecil didn't look up. Come in. Batman entered, silent as always. He placed a thin folder on Cecil's desk. Cecil glanced at it. What's this? Batman said, Boundaries. Cecil's mouth tightened. Threats. Batman's voice was flat. Same thing. Different honesty. Cecil looked at Batman. You staying? Batman didn't answer right away. Then he said, for now. Cecil nodded once, like he didn't want to admit that mattered. Batman turned to leave. Cecil said, Your badge. Batman paused. Cecil pointed. The badge was clipped to Batman's belt. Batman's voice was cold. Don't get used to it. Cecil's lips moved like he almost smiled. Then Batman was gone. Cecil leaned back and stared at the map again. He whispered, not for anyone else. Okay, Cecil said. Let them come. On a rooftop across the city, Wonder Woman stood alone for a moment. She watched the skyline, listening to the wind. This world was harsh. It punished kindness. It rewarded control. But she had seen something in Mark's eyes after the truth broke. It wasn't just pain. It was choice. And choice was where heroes were born. She turned and walked toward the GDA lights, toward the work, toward the coming war. Far above the earth, in the dark, something watched. Not a tear, not a portal, just eyes in space, measuring, waiting. The Viltrumite Empire did not rush. It did not panic. It prepared. And now, Earth was no longer just another easy world. Now, Earth had a symbol flying over it, not a flag, not a government. A person who refused to kneel. Down below, in the city, Mark landed on the same rooftop as before, breathing hard after a rescue. Superman landed beside him. Mark looked at the lights of Chicago, then at the sky. He whispered, "It's not over." Superman nodded. "No," Superman said, "but you're not alone anymore." Mark took a slow breath. Then he stood a little straighter. And the night kept going, just like it always did, only different now.